Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
James stared at the screen, his chest tightening as he read her message. 1.5 million is guaranteed, right? Don't call me at home again, it's risky. His wife, Laura, who once shared dreams of building a life together, was now a stranger wrapped in deceit. The mention of sedatives in the following texts sent a chill down his spine. She wasn't just betraying him, she was planning to erase his resistance. That night in the quiet of their shared home, James vowed one thing. No matter the cost, he'd uncover every twisted secret, even if it shattered his world forever. Before we dive into the full story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you're enjoying this tale, don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. Chapter 1. Dawn broke across the quiet coastal town in Maine, painting the sky with pastel pinks and oranges. James Hadley, 32 years old, with a trim physique and earnest eyes, stirred from restless sleep. On any other day, he might have woken cheerfully, anticipating the drive to Seacrest Community College, where he taught early American history. But not today. He lay in bed, gaze fixed on the sliver of sunrise glinting through the blinds, heart heavy with an unnamed dread. For weeks now, he'd felt a subtle rift creeping into his marriage. His wife, Laura, had grown secretive, always typing on her phone at odd hours, taking extra client dinners for her private accounting job. James's gut churned with the sense that something was off. In the gentle hush of the morning, he turned slightly to see Laura's side of the bed was empty, rumpled sheets indicating she'd risen earlier or maybe not slept much at all. He wondered if she'd retreated to the living room to make calls. Lately, she seemed to prefer pacing around in the dark, half an hour before sunrise, talking softly to someone on the phone. She always claimed it was an international client who needed immediate assistance. But the tightness in her voice whenever James appeared, the abrupt end to her calls, told him a different story. He closed his eyes, inhaling the brine-laced breeze that drifted from the ocean beyond their little house. He told himself to be logical. Sometimes accountants do have urgent meetings, especially with wealthy clients in other time zones. Laura was ambitious. She'd always wanted bigger fish to fry. But that glimmer of suspicion refused to fade. Sighing, he forced himself upright, vowing to keep calm, gather clues quietly before jumping to conclusions. As he swung his legs off the bed, a soft beep sounded from somewhere in the hallway. He recognized it as Laura's phone notification. She never used to get so many messages at dawn, he thought grimly. What's changed? Padding into the hallway in a plain t-shirt and pajama pants, James found the house's living area tinted by early light. The small water-facing windows revealed pink streaks over the Atlantic, a view they once cherished together. Now, the silence felt tense, like a held breath. He spotted Laura in the kitchen, phone in hand, brow furrowed. She was a striking woman, tall, with sleek, dark hair that fell in a perfect wave over her shoulders. She wore a soft blue robe, her posture rigid. The steam from a freshly brewed coffee curled up in front of her, untouched. She didn't even glance at it, eyes locked on her phone screen, typing frantically. James hovered near the archway, unnoticed for a moment. He watched her expression shift. A flash of worry, then a small, secretive smile. She typed again, shoulders tense. Who is she texting so urgently? He considered stepping back into the bedroom to avoid confrontation, but he forced himself to speak up. "Morning," he said softly, stepping into the kitchen. Laura jolted, nearly dropping her phone. Her wide eyes met his with a fleeting look of panic, then she quickly masked it with a forced grin. "Oh, hey. Didn't realize you were up." James offered a tired smile. Couldn't sleep. He gestured at the coffee. That for me? She swallowed, glancing at the mug as if she'd forgotten about it. Right, yeah. I, made it for you? Early start? He nodded, stepping closer to pick up the mug. Her phone screen was now dark, locked. She clutched it in her hand, knuckles white, as if he might snatch it from her. He sipped the coffee hot, strong, slightly bitter. Thanks. For a beat, they stood there, a hush too loaded with tension. James studied her face, faint shadows under her eyes, a subtle anxiousness in her brow. She'd once been so open, telling him every detail of her day. Now her posture screamed, I have a secret. He forced a gentle tone. Everything okay? She bobbed her head too quickly. Yes, of course. Just work stuff. Tax season's coming soon. Clients get fussy. She slipped the phone into the pocket of her robe. You know how it is? He exhaled. I do. Let me know if you want to talk. About anything. For a moment, her eyes shone with what might have been guilt. Then she nodded. Sure. I'm fine, really. Later that morning, James drove to Seacrest Community College along the winding coastal highway. The scent of salt water was normally a comfort, but not today. His mind buzzed with Laura's odd behavior. He tried to refocus on his lecture plan. He had a class on the early Puritan settlements, a subject he usually loved explaining passionately. Yet his excitement felt dulled by personal worries. Upon parking in the faculty lot, he grabbed his satchel and headed toward the ivy-covered main building. A colleague, Nina Roberts, a fellow history instructor with bright eyes and a warm smile, waved from across the quad. She hurried over, adjusting her shoulder bag. James, you look tired. Nina's tone brimmed with concern. They'd been friends for years, occasionally sharing after-work drinks. He attempted a small grin. Rough morning. Couldn't sleep. Probably just the change in weather. Nina tilted her head. You sure? You've seemed off for a while. If something's up, you can talk to me. I'm a good listener. He hesitated, grateful for her empathy, but not ready to spill everything. I appreciate it, Nina. Just typical life stress, I guess. I'll survive. She studied him a second longer, then nodded softly. All right, but don't forget you've got friends here. She patted his arm. We can handle your classes if you need a break. James forced a chuckle. I'll keep that in mind. Thanks. They parted ways, Nina heading to her World Civ class, James continuing to his lecture hall. The worry gnawing at him was unlike any normal stress. This was pure suspicion, a sense that a massive betrayal lay just out of sight. I'll find proof if there's any, he vowed. Halfway through the day, James stepped out from his final morning lecture, still preoccupied by student papers he had to grade. As he walked toward the faculty lounge, his phone vibrated Laura's text. Meet me at the Lighthouse Bistro at 1 p.m. Important. His brows shot up. She rarely came to campus on a weekday, let alone took him to lunch spontaneously. Maybe she wants to discuss something urgent, he thought. Nerves spiking. Could it be about her job? Her big new project? Or was it about them? He typed a quick reply. Sure. See you then. At exactly 1 p.m., he arrived at the Lighthouse Bistro, a quaint spot near the pier with windows overlooking the ocean. Laura sat at a corner table wearing a charcoal blazer over a sleek blouse. She tapped her fingers restlessly on the tablecloth, eyes flicking to the door. When she spotted him, she forced a bright smile. Hey, she greeted as he sat. Thanks for coming. James nodded, removing his jacket. Of course, you sounded serious. She inhaled, fiddling with the menu. I wanted to share some news. I might be well. There's this big investment opportunity through a new client. Could be life-changing for us. Her tone was pitched with excitement. but an undercurrent of tension laced each word. He cocked his head. "And you needed to meet in person to tell me?" She shrugged. This deal is hush-hush. High net worth individuals only. If it pans out, we could pay off the house, maybe get a bigger place. Travel." Her eyes shone, but not necessarily with warmth for James, more like greed. "Think about the future, James." He sipped the water the waiter had brought. "I'm not opposed to success, but this is all so sudden. You never mentioned it before." She gave a tight smile. "I couldn't. Confidentiality. But now, we're close to signing. I just need your moral support." She placed her hand on his, cool fingers pressing. "Do you trust me?" He felt a swirl of conflicting emotions, love, suspicion, resentment. He masked it with a gentle smile. "Of course. Just be careful with these big deals. We don't want to risk our finances on something shady, right?" She blinked, withdrawing her hand. "Right, well, trust me. It's legit. Soon, you'll see." She signaled the waiter for their orders, swiftly changing the topic to small talk about how she wants to celebrate once the money rolls in. James played along, but inside, he noted every forced smile, every deflection. She's definitely hiding the details. Possibly about A.H. This so-called real estate mogul. He resolved to keep gathering clues. That same evening, James dozed on the living room couch after grading essays. He jerked awake to the sound of Laura's voice in the kitchen, hushed but urgent. The clock read 11:47 p.m. Why was she on the phone so late? He rose silently, padding toward the kitchen's threshold. Laura's back faced him as she leaned against the counter, phone pressed to her ear. Her tone was anxious, laced with half-whispers. "Yes, yes. I can do that. No, he won't suspect anything. Fine, I'll confirm in 2 days. 5 million is guaranteed, right?" James's heart hammered. 5 million. That wasn't a routine accounting matter. A swirl of dread clenched his stomach. He swallowed, stepping forward just enough to catch a bit more. Laura paused, listening. Then she hissed, "I told you, keep him clueless. I'll handle it. Don't call me at home again, it's risky." She hung up, turning with a sharp breath, and froze, spotting James in the doorway. Her eyes flashed with a mixture of guilt and annoyance. "You startled me." He forced a casual stance, arms folded. "Sorry, I was thirsty. Everything okay?" She plastered on a weak smile. Yes. Just a late client call about a potential deposit. You know how some international time zones are." He nodded slowly, gaze fixed on her stiff posture. "Right. You sure it's not too stressful?" She gave a short laugh that didn't meet her eyes. "I'm fine. I'll be up to bed soon." James lingered, wanting to push for answers. Instead, he retreated, letting her stew in the lie. He marched upstairs, mind racing. She's definitely orchestrating something huge, possibly an infusion of 5 million from that A.H. figure. The question was, what exactly is she selling to get that money? Unable to contain the turmoil, James decided to visit his father, Griffin, the next day. If anyone might have guidance, it'd be the man who once taught James to read people, to never ignore gut feelings. But lately, Griffin had seemed distant, oddly concerned whenever James mentioned Laura. Still, James needed an ally. He drove out to Griffin's cozy marina cottage. The salt-tinged air and bobbing sailboats once made James's chest swell with nostalgia. Now, a heaviness weighed on him. He knocked on the cottage door, hearing the shuffle of feet inside. Griffin opened up, wearing an old flannel shirt, a guarded expression on his weathered face. "James," Griffin greeted, stepping aside to let him in. "Didn't expect you." James gave a tight shrug. "I needed to talk." They sat in the living area, surrounded by decades of nautical knickknacks. Griffin offered coffee, which James declined, wanting to cut straight to the point. "Dad, something's off with Laura. Big time. She's dealing with enormous sums like $1 million plus. She's on secret phone calls at night." Griffin's expression flickered with alarm, quickly concealed. "She's an accountant for wealthy clients, right?" James narrowed his eyes. "I know the difference between normal big clients and whatever this is. She's hiding details, referencing hush-hush deals. Dad, I suspect an affair, possibly with that real estate mogul, Alex Harrington. I found business cards, Aspen trip references." Griffin's jaw clenched. "That's quite an accusation. Are you sure?" A swirl of frustration welled in James. "I'm not blind. Something's happening, and I keep seeing you tense up whenever I mention her. You have any idea what she's up to?" Griffin looked away, fiddling with his coffee mug. Son, I'm not in her head." "Maybe you're imagining," James's temper flared. "Dad, don't treat me like a kid. If you know something, say it. I need the truth." He stared at Griffin, a flicker of doubt crossing his mind. Was his father complicit, or just worried? After a tense moment, Griffin exhaled shakily. "All I'll say is, be careful. Some deals are more complicated than they appear. Laura might be in over her head, but it's not necessarily your place to intervene." James gaped. "Not my place? She's my wife. This is my life." Griffin mumbled something like, "I just don't want you to do anything rash." Then he abruptly changed the subject to the upcoming fishing festival, leaving James incensed. Storming out of Griffin's cottage, James felt even more suspicious. Why is Dad brushing me off? He wondered. He texted Nina, asking if they could meet for coffee after her afternoon class. She agreed. At the campus cafe, they sat by a window overlooking the grassy quad. Nina sipped her latte, eyebrows knitted with concern. "James, you look like you're one breath away from snapping. What's going on?" He took a moment, then laid out a portion of the story. How Laura's money talk seemed shady, how she might be meeting some big shot named Alex Harrington, how Griffin's acting strangely. He didn't mention the potential affair in detail, but Nina got the gist. She frowned, gently placing a hand on his arm. "I've heard rumors around campus some staff have seen Laura dining with a well-known real estate investor. Quite intimately. I dismissed it as gossip, but now it aligns with what you're saying." James's stomach twisted. "So it's not just me imagining it?" Nina sighed. "No. If you want my advice, gather evidence. Don't confront blindly. This could be bigger than just a fling. Protect yourself, your finances, your heart." He nodded gratefully. "Thanks, Nina. I appreciate your honesty." She offered a sad smile. "Just be careful. This guy, Alex, if it's the same person I heard about, he's got a reputation for. Let's say, buying what he wants. I'd hate to see you hurt." James forced a resolute grin. "I won't be the one hurt. Not anymore." That evening, James feigned exhaustion so Laura wouldn't suspect his vigilance. She retired early to the bedroom, claiming a headache. Once he heard her soft snores, he crept to the study. They shared a desktop computer, rarely used nowadays except for official documents or backups. He powered it on, rummaging through hidden folders. Heart-pounding, he discovered a folder named LLH Accounts. Inside were email backups from Laura's old Outlook. He clicked one labeled Confidential Deal. The screen loaded a string of messages. From L. Lane Laurie Elaine Accounts, com, to A. H. Alexu Harrington Realty. Net subject, confirmation. Alex, the arrangement stands. 24 hours at the Aspen Suite, $1, 5 million wire, plus $500K in gold bullion for ongoing discretion. No public record, correct? We finalize next week. L. James's throat constricted. 24 hours? 5 million plus gold? Is she selling herself? The horrifying realization slammed him. He skimmed further, seeing references to Kensington Bank deposit box, no trace to my spouse, and explicit NDAs. Each line hammered home that Laura was complicit in a twisted transaction with Alex Harrington, some indecent proposal for a huge payoff. He almost hurled the keyboard in rage, but he forced calm. I need to gather more. He saved the entire folder to a secret USB. Let her not realize I found this. Mind swirling, James clicked off the computer. He returned to the dim hallway, every muscle tense. He halfway wanted to barge into the bedroom, throw the emails in Laura's face, demand an explanation. But Nina's words echoed. Gather evidence. Don't be rash. He peeked into the bedroom, seeing Laura asleep under the faint glow of the bedside lamp. Her phone lay on the nightstand, screen down. If I don't keep calm, she'll bury her tracks, he thought. He swallowed his fury, stepping back. He tiptoed to the guest room, not wanting to lie beside her tonight. Lying awake on the guest bed, he stared at the ceiling, heart hammered by betrayal. A swirl of questions tortured him. How long had she planned to prostitute herself for money? Did she even love me at all? Why is Griffin acting so weird? He told himself, wait, there's more. Something bigger is at play. Dawn found James still awake, adrenaline fueling his every breath. The revelations about Laura's deal with Alex Harrington overshadowed any illusions he'd clung to. He'd discovered enough to confirm a monstrous betrayal, yet not the full picture. Could there be more layers? Dad's involvement? The baby possibility? He rose, face pale in the bathroom mirror. He whispered to his reflection, I won't be a victim. I'll make them pay for what they're doing. The plan was forming in his mind, piece by piece. The heartbreak pulsed raw in his chest, but a cold, calculating resolve stoked his fury. He stepped out, glancing at the closed bedroom door behind which Laura still slept. Sleep well, he thought grimly, because soon you won't find any peace once I unleash the truth. Chapter 2. James had never felt so isolated. The morning after his sleepless night, he roamed the campus hallways in a fog, greeting colleagues with forced smiles. He needed an ally, someone discreet, capable of investigating high-level financial tricks. He recalled an old friend from college days, Alexis Moore, who pivoted from law school to private investigation. If anyone could help him unravel Laura's plot, it was Alexis. During lunch, James sat in his cramped office, phone in hand, scrolling until he found Alexis's contact. They'd lost touch over the years, but the time for formalities was gone. He tapped call, breath unsteady. Hello? A confident female voice answered. Alexis, hey, it's James Hadley from Barnwell College. I'm sorry to call out of the blue, but I really need your help. A pause, then a hint of warmth. James? Wow, it's been ages. Sure, talk to me. You sound serious. He glanced around the empty office, lowered his voice. It's complicated. My wife is involved in a shady arrangement with a big real estate mogul. Large sums, possibly hush money. I have partial evidence, but need more to prove wrongdoing. Are you taking clients? She exhaled. I do. Private investigations, digital forensics, background checks. If you trust me, I can dig up the truth, but be warned. It might be messy. James let out a shaky breath. I have no choice. Let's meet. Soon as possible. They arranged to meet that evening at a diner on the outskirts of town, where prying eyes were fewer. James ended the call, heart pounding. Finally, a real step forward. After scheduling his meeting with Alexis, James stepped out of his office to find Nina waiting, a worried crease on her brow. You okay? You disappeared for lunch? Heard you canceled your afternoon class? He rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, I had to make some calls. Nina, it's bigger than I thought. Laura's doing something with huge sums, possibly an affair with that Alex Harrington guy. I found emails referencing 1.5 million for a personal arrangement. Nina's eyes widened, sympathy swirling. James, that's insane. I'm so sorry. She touched his arm gently. Have you confronted her? He shook his head. Not directly. I want more proof, a thorough investigation. I called an old friend, a PI. She'll help me. Meanwhile, I'm playing it cool at home. Nina pursed her lips. That's probably wise, but this must be killing you inside. Are you sure you're okay? He forced a half smile. I'm surviving. I just need to see this through. She nodded, hugging him briefly. I'm here if you need to vent. Don't bottle everything up. He returned the hug, grateful for her kindness. Thanks, Nina. You're a real friend. The sun dipped low over the harbor as James parked his car outside Dockside Diner, a modest eatery known for clam chowder and minimal foot traffic after sundown. Perfect for a clandestine chat. He slipped into a booth in the back corner, scanning the room. Moments later, Alexis entered a tall, poised woman with a sleek bob haircut, wearing a casual blazer. Her sharp eyes found him and she offered a small smile. They exchanged quick pleasantries, then got straight to business. James, voice hushed, recounted everything. The suspicious late-night calls, the Aspen trip, the $1, $5 million figure, the partial emails, the hush-hush references to gold. Alexis listened intently, occasionally jotting notes. When he finished, Alexis leaned back, eyes narrowed in thought. So, your wife, Laura, is an accountant dealing with wealthy clients. She's hooking up with Alex Harrington for a large sum like a pay-for-play scenario, possibly disguised as a real estate or investment arrangement. And you suspect your father might also be entangled? James inhaled raggedly. Yes. I overheard clues that Griffin might be meeting Laura privately. I found a note referencing him as G. Pierce, which could be his middle name, Pierce. I can't confirm, but it's sickening. Alexis gave a low whistle. This is a web of betrayal, all right. We can't jump to conclusions on the father angle, but we'll keep it in mind. She tapped her pen. Let's talk strategy. I can do digital tracing on her bank accounts, confirm if she's receiving unexplained wires from Harrington. Also, I can track Harrington's shell corporations. If we can tie them together on large transactions, it's huge. James nodded fervently. Yes, that, plus maybe hidden cameras or phone taps if legal? She shrugged. In Maine, one-party consent for recordings might allow you to record your own conversations with her. But for her phone or places outside your shared home, we need caution to avoid illegal wiretaps. We can do a stakeout approach, maybe. Physical tailing, too. He swallowed, feeling the weight of crossing moral lines. But the memory of her blatant betrayal hardened his resolve. Do whatever you must. I want a bulletproof case. I want them humiliated and possibly prosecuted if they're committing fraud. Alexis offered a solemn nod. Understood. I'll begin immediately. Send me copies of those emails. I'll ping you with updates daily. James exhaled relief. Thank you. This means the world. Over the next few days, James maintained a facade of normalcy while Alexis initiated her investigation. Late one afternoon, Laura texted that she'd be working late with a client downtown. James decided it was the perfect window to snoop around their house for hidden compartments or safes. He recalled she once mentioned renting a safe box for valuables, but never elaborated. He combed through the walk-in closet, scanning the high shelves, rummaging under folded sweaters. Finally, behind a stack of old holiday decorations, he found a small steel lockbox with a numeric keypad. Heart pounding, he tested a few possible codes her birthday, their anniversary without success. Then he tried her father's birthday. The lock beeped green, unlatching. Inside, he found crisp, sealed envelopes stuffed with financial statements referencing LL Investments. A few gold coins glinted under them, each coin stamped with an official bullion mark. A hush of realization settled over him. She already has some portion of that gold, possibly a fraction of the bigger deal with Alex. He snapped quick photos, not daring to take anything. He carefully replaced everything, locked the box, and returned it to its hiding spot. His pulse raced with every step. Evidence is piling up, he thought. She's definitely into shady dealings with Harrington. That same evening, James received a cryptic text from Griffin. "We need to talk. Come by the marina now. Important." He debated ignoring it, but curiosity about Griffin's potential role in this fiasco drove him. He hopped in his car, heading to the marina after dusk. The wind whipped across the docks, making the boats sway gently under dim lanterns. He found Griffin pacing near an old fishing trawler, face lined with tension. "James, thanks for coming." James folded his arms. "You said it was urgent." Griffin inhaled. "I can sense you're onto something with Laura. Listen, son, you should back off. Some men you don't want to cross. Harrington is powerful." James narrowed his eyes. "So you do know about her dealings with Harrington?" Griffin looked away. "I overheard bits. She asked me for advice something about property transactions. I told her it's risky. He hesitated, guilt twisting his features. "I never thought it'd get this far." James scoffed. "Really? Because it seems like you're more involved than you admit. Cut the crap, Dad. Are you hooking up with her, too?" Griffin's face went pale. "What? Where'd you get that idea?" James's voice sharpened. "I found a note referencing meeting at the cabin, references to G. Pierce. You told me not to meddle. You're clearly protecting something." A flicker of panic crossed Griffin's eyes. "Son, it's not what you think. We had an indiscretion. It was one time. We both regretted it. I was drunk. She was upset about Alex. I'm sorry." James's stomach lurched. The world spun. So his darkest fear was true. His father had slept with his wife. What kind of betrayal is this? He forced a stony calm. "So you cheated with my wife? Did it produce that baby she claims to be pregnant with?" Griffin swallowed, voice trembling. "She told me it might be mine, but I don't know for sure. She's also messing with Harrington. I tried to keep you out of it to fix it quietly." James's fists clenched. "Fix it quietly? You two destroyed my marriage behind my back. You think telling me to back off helps me?" Griffin reached out, tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry, truly. I never wanted to hurt you." James recoiled, voice trembling with rage. "Don't touch me. If you're the father of her child, you realize how sick this is?" Griffin lowered his head in shame. "I'll take full responsibility if it's mine. Please, James, don't blow up your life over this." He let out a harsh laugh. "Don't blow up my life? My father and wife conspired in my bed, and she's also whoring herself to Alex Harrington for millions of hush money. My life is already in ruins, thanks to you." Griffin's voice cracked. "Give me a chance to fix it." James stepped back, face hard. "No, I'll handle it my way. Don't contact me again." Without another word, he spun on his heel, heading back to his car, leaving Griffin slumped in guilt on the dock. Back at home, James paced for hours, mind swirling in a hurricane of emotions. He slapped a palm against the living room wall, tears burning his eyes. My father, my wife, a child that might be my half-sibling. The betrayal hammered at him from all sides. Around midnight, he dialed Nina. She answered groggily. "James, it's so late." He exhaled, voice cracking. "I just found out Dad slept with Laura. She's pregnant. Might be his. I can't even process this." A horrified gasp from Nina. "Oh my God. James, I'm so sorry. That's unimaginable." He slumped to the floor, pressing the phone to his ear. "I feel sick. I want to rage or vanish, but I have to keep my head. The plan with Alexis is ongoing, and I can't tip Laura off yet." Nina softly consoled him, urging him to breathe, to remember he's not alone. He found a shred of solace in her gentle words, eventually ending the call with a bit less despair. 2 days later, Alexis summoned James to her small PI office in an old brick building downtown. The space smelled of coffee and old paper. She greeted him with a nod, gesturing for him to sit across her cluttered desk. "James," she began, scanning her laptop, "I've uncovered more than I expected. Here's the short version. Harrington is known for private amusements like paying large sums for secret trysts with married women. Usually he uses shell companies. Laura is one of them, set to receive a total of $2 million in increments, half in direct wire, half in gold bullion. She's also forging your signature on some joint accounts to mask transactions." James's jaw clenched, though none of this truly surprised him after what he'd seen. "God, so she's not just cheating, she's forging documents. That's criminal." Alexis nodded. "Yes, and the father angle with Griffin complicates it, but from a purely legal standpoint, that's separate. However, if you want to destroy her socially, morally, that detail is damning. If you want to go nuclear, we gather DNA proof. That child could be your half-sibling if she's truly pregnant." He swallowed thickly. "She claims she's pregnant. No official test from my side. But Griffin admitted a fling with her. I want them both exposed. I want Harrington hammered too." Alexis tapped a stack of printouts. "We have enough to do that. Bank logs, phone logs, location pings. I also found probable cause that Harrington tried this with other women, but your wife's case is the largest sum yet." James exhaled, rage fueling a sense of savage satisfaction. "Good. Let's finalize the plan to catch them in the act. Some big gold transfer or doping attempt. Then I'll publicly shame them." That night, James rummaged through Laura's drawers, searching for any prenatal care documents. She'd left her laptop open. He found an appointment calendar referencing an OB/GYN next week, so she's following through on this pregnancy. If that baby truly was Griffin's, the scandal soared to unimaginable heights. He paused, scanning the lonely reflection in the window. "I can't let pity for an unborn child dissuade me." They all stepped on his heart, forging the ultimate betrayal. He'd ensure they reaped the consequences. Unable to hold back, James decided a mild confrontation was necessary to gauge her reaction. When she returned late that night, hair mussed, reeking of some cologne that wasn't his, he confronted her in the living room. "Where were you, Laura? You smell like a man's cologne. Not your typical tax client's environment." She froze, eyes darting. I had a last-minute dinner with a new client. Must be the restaurant's ambiance. Don't accuse me of nonsense." He glared. "Nonsense? I found suspicious emails about large sums, gold bullion. You want to call that nonsense?" Her face paled. "You looked at my emails? That's private." He advanced a step, fury coiled in his stance. "We're married, but clearly you have no respect for that. So yes, I took a peek. Care to explain? 1, $5 million for 24 hours of your time in Aspen? You think I'm blind?" She trembled, lips thinning. "I can't talk about it. NDAs. If you just trust me." He snorted bitterly. "Trust died the moment you sold yourself, so keep lying. I promise you I'll find the truth. Don't expect me to be a clueless fool anymore." She blinked, tears welling. Then her expression hardened. "Fine. be that way. If you can't handle success, maybe I should be with someone who can. Rage erupted in James's chest, but he held his tongue. He spun around and stormed off to the guest room, slamming the door. Let her stew in her arrogance. James sat on the edge of the guest bed, heart pounding in a swirl of heartbreak and fury. She's basically admitting she'd rather chase money with Harrington. Dad also had a fling with her. The baby might be Dad's. This is a nightmare. Yet he refused to be a victim. Tapping his phone, he messaged Alexis. "Prepare for the final takedown. I'm all in." Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the stormy coastal sky. The reflection of James's tormented face in the mirror said it all. Betrayal demands retribution. Next step, ensuring they face a humiliating legal and moral downfall. Chapter 3. A restless dawn broke over the coastal horizon, casting dull gold streaks through thick clouds. James hadn't slept. He sat in the guest room, pinned to the battered armchair, half-dressed in last night's clothes. The phone in his hand displayed messages from Alexis, offering details on Harrington's upcoming schedule, a new real estate expo in the city. If Laura planned to see him, that might be the perfect time for a public fiasco. He forced a slow breath. The heartbreak was real, but overshadowed by a calculating resolve. He recalled each step of the plan. Gather irrefutable evidence, orchestrate a confrontation that left no wiggle room for Laura or Griffin or Harrington. Let them drown in their own deceit. When he ventured into the kitchen, Laura was there, hair neatly brushed, wearing a crisp blouse, radiating forced cheer. "Morning," she chirped, as if last night's confrontation never happened. She slid a plate of eggs and toast toward him. "I made breakfast." James eyed her warily. "Thanks." He sat, appetite minimal. She hovered, attempting small talk about weekend plans. Her sudden niceness felt like guilt. Or perhaps she was trying to lull him back into complacency. He mustered nonchalant responses, letting her believe he was backing down. Internally, he seethed. She eventually left for the office, again refusing specifics. He watched her drive off in her sleek sedan, suspecting she was actually meeting Harrington or forging more documents. Nina had once told him about seeing Griffin's truck near the old family cabin. James decided to see it for himself in broad daylight. If the cabin was a meeting ground for Laura and Griffin, maybe additional evidence lay there. Midday, James made an excuse to skip campus office hours, driving deep into the pine-forested outskirts. The cabin was a rustic old place built decades ago, dusty from disuse, allegedly. He parked behind some trees, creeping around the structure. The front door was locked, but a side window proved loosely latched. He carefully lifted it, sliding inside. Dust motes swirled in the dim interior. The air smelled stale. He flicked on a flashlight, scanning the living area. He found half-empty beer bottles, wrappers from high-end chocolate, and a scattered blanket on the sofa. This place has seen recent activity. With growing dread, he imagined Griffin and Laura here, entwined. Anger churned. He rummaged quietly, stumbling upon a small desk in the corner. Inside a drawer, he discovered a crumpled letter in Griffin's handwriting. "Laura, I can't live with this lie much longer. James is getting suspicious. If the child is mine, we need to come clean or find a better cover story. I never wanted to destroy my son, but your arrangement with Harrington complicates everything. Let's meet soon and figure out the best approach." G. James stared at the note, hands trembling. Confirmation, in writing, that they conspired to hide the baby's paternity from him. That Griffin knew of Harrington's presence, too. This was all the puzzle pieces in one place. He snapped photos with his phone, then carefully replaced the note, ensuring no sign he'd been there. He climbed back out the window, breath ragged. "They're all in on it, Laura. Harrington Dad. He fought tears, turning to cold fury. They'll pay. Armed with fresh impetus, James phoned Alexis. We need a more aggressive approach. I found proof in Griffin's cabin. He's definitely entwined with Laura. We must catch them red-handed. Alexis answered calmly. I've expanded digital surveillance. Harrington's phone logs show he's scheduled to be at a private yacht event next weekend. If Laura goes, that's prime time for a sting. Also, we might catch your father if he's involved. James nodded, voice tight. Do it. I'll help however you need. They strategized. Alexis would plant a bug on Harrington's personal assistant's phone if possible, track real-time movements. James would feign a weekend history seminar out of town, letting Laura think he's gone. She'd likely take the bait, meeting Harrington for the next big gold transaction or doping scheme. Then Alexis could alert the police to intercept. The plan crystallized. Meanwhile, Nina accidentally learned the paternity bombshell. She visited James's office, finding him hunched over the cabin letter. Concerned, she read it. Her gasp of horror told James she now knew the worst. Laura's baby might be Griffin's. She pressed a hand to her mouth, eyes shining with sympathy. James, my God, I'm so sorry. This is monstrous. How are you holding up? He sighed, shoulders sagging. Barely. But I'm determined to see them all face consequences. She hesitated, then wrapped him in a gentle hug. He collapsed into it briefly, letting her warmth soothe the battered corners of his heart. You deserve better, she whispered. He nodded, stepping back with a quiet murmur of thanks. That fleeting moment reminded him not everyone in his life was a traitor. One evening, while James showered, he emerged to find Laura rummaging through the kitchen drawers. At first he thought nothing of it, maybe she was seeking utensils, but her startled reaction upon noticing him told a different story. She spun around, quickly concealing a small vial. James's eyes narrowed. What's that? She plastered a fake grin. Nothing. Just vitamins. Why so jumpy? He advanced, a swirl of dread creeping in. Let me see. She clutched it behind her. Back off, James. Stop acting crazy. He inhaled, stepping away to diffuse the confrontation. She might attempt doping me. He recalled the doping plan Alexis suspected. The idea that Laura might literally drug him for some twisted reason, maybe to keep him docile or frame him, made his blood run cold. He forced a calm smile. Fine. Sorry for overreacting. He retreated to the bedroom, heart pounding. He'd add extra caution with any food or drink she gave him. The weekend drew near. James told Laura he'd be away at a regional academic conference, leaving Friday morning and returning Sunday night. She pretended mild interest, offering a perfunctory good luck. He recognized the gleam of opportunity in her eyes. She planned to see Harrington or finalize the gold scheme. Alexis reported that Harrington indeed had a secret yacht party near the coast, accessible by an isolated pier. If Laura was going, she'd likely gather the last stash of gold or try doping James's father or who knows what. The complexity was insane, but the plan was straightforward. Let Laura think James was out of town, then Alexis's team and possibly the local police, if needed, would swoop in. The night before his fake departure, James lay in bed, feigning casual conversation about his trip. Laura's expressions betrayed excitement. She even gave him a half-hearted kiss, as though to maintain illusions. Inside, James raged at her hypocrisy. Tomorrow, your illusions crumble. Around midnight, James's phone lit up Griffin calling. James answered warily. Griffin's voice was hushed. Son, I know you hate me, but please, I must see you. There's something you need to know about Harrington. He's dangerous. He threatened to harm you if we don't keep you quiet. I regret everything. I want to protect you now. A bitter laugh escaped James. Protect me? Too late, Dad. You should have thought about that before sleeping with my wife, or letting Harrington get his claws in her. Griffin pleaded. I was a fool. Let me fix it. We can, James snapped. Don't call me again. He hung up. He'd let Griffin drown in his mistakes. At dawn, James packed a small bag, loaded it into his car, and told Laura a quick goodbye, ignoring her stiff wave. He drove off, looping through side roads until he was sure she couldn't see him. Then he parked at Nina's place. Nina had graciously agreed to let him hide his car in her garage for the weekend. From there, Alexis picked James up in an unmarked sedan. They headed to a vantage point near the harbor where Harrington's yacht would depart. Alexis's assistants were already staking out vantage points with binoculars, cameras, and audio gear. The local police detective who Alexis had connections with stood ready to intervene if evidence of felony wrongdoing emerged. James sat in the passenger seat, mind swirling. If everything goes right, I'll have them cornered. Yet a gnawing fear whispered, what if they sense a trap? Late that afternoon, Alexis's phone buzzed. One of her watchers said, "We see Harrington's black SUV arriving at Pier 7. A woman with dark hair is with him, looks like Laura." Another voice crackled over the speaker. "Yes, that's them. Plus an older man. Might be Griffin Hadley." James's heart pounded. Dad is with them. Perfect. They watched from a distance as the trio boarded the yacht, carrying what appeared to be small, locked chests. Could that be the gold? Alexis whispered. We wait until they incriminate themselves, maybe in exchange or admission. Then the cops move. James nodded, adrenaline surging. The scene was set for the final betrayal reveal. He could barely breathe, imagining confronting them all at once. Betrayal demands retribution, he told himself, gaze fixed on the yacht's silhouette. Next chapter. The storm breaks. Chapter 4. From the vantage of Alexis's sedan, James gripped a pair of binoculars, scanning the harbor. Evening light gilded the water in molten gold. The sleek yacht bobbed at the far end of the pier, engines idling softly. He spotted Harrington, tall and broad-shouldered in a tailored jacket, stepping onto the deck. Laura followed, hair fluttering in the breeze, eyes darting anxiously. Griffin trudged behind them, shoulders hunched as though burdened by regret. A swirl of anger and heartbreak twisted in James's gut. He watched Harrington greet them with a forced grin, gesturing for them to enter the yacht's interior lounge. Two men in dark suits, bodyguards, presumably stood watch at the gangway. Alexis's voice cut in. Our guys are hidden on a neighboring fishing boat, capturing video with a high-zoom lens. We have to wait for incriminating actions before police intervene. Let's see what they do. James nodded, heart thundering. They might finalize the gold handover, or maybe they're planning something else. Though James couldn't see inside, Alexis had discreetly placed a bug on Harrington's personal assistant's phone earlier that day. Now, the assistant was presumably near them, so snippets of conversation reached Alexis's laptop, which was wired to a portable receiver. The audio was spotty, marred by boat engine hum, but discernible. Harrington. Transferring the final portion keep James completely in the dark. Laura. He's out of town. Clueless baby not his anyway. Griffin. I hate this, but we can't undo what's done. We just need the money secure. Harrington. We finalize tonight. Then no one can challenge us. Understood? James clenched his jaw, the words confirming everything. They were all colluding. Even hearing Griffin's voice colluding about money made him want to vomit. Alexis laid a hand on his shoulder as if to say, patience. The next snippet of audio caught them off guard. Laura. I brought the sedation stuff, in case James shows up or tries something. We can claim he's an addict. If needed, get him out of the way legally. Harrington. Smart. But he's traveling, right? Griffin. Yes, but we must be prepared. That's how we keep him silent. James inhaled sharply. They planned to frame or drug him if he interfered. Alexis's eyes flashed with anger. These scum! They'd drug you, label you an addict. She typed a quick message to the detective. They have sedation drugs, possibly a trap for James. Highly criminal. The detective responded. We're ready. Just waiting for direct exchange or some felony act in plain sight. Continuing to listen, James heard Griffin grumble. Griffin. Told you. I never wanted to ruin his life. It's gone too far. The baby is mine, yes. But this is sick. Harrington. Do we need to keep Laura with you? Harrington. You want your cut or not, old man? We do it my way. Laura. Stop whining, Griffin. I have no regrets about securing my future. Let's just finish this. Then we can figure out the baby's story. James's nails dug into his palm. No regrets. She's irredeemable. Outside, Alexis nodded to James. We have enough. The conspiracy is blatant. They're forging documents, holding sedation drugs, discussing fraudulent deals. Let's alert the detective to move in. James exhaled, voice shaky. Yes, let's do it. End this. Alexis radioed the detective. Within minutes, a small police boat glided across the harbor. Another squad car advanced on the pier from land. Harrington's guards tensed, spotting the approach. The risk of them fleeing by sea loomed large, so timing was crucial. Sensing trouble, Harrington barked orders inside the yacht. The engine revved, the boat beginning to pull away from the dock. Alexis cursed. They're trying to escape. If they reach open water, it's complicated. James watched in alarm. The police boat turned on flashing lights, calling via loudspeaker. Cut your engines. We have probable cause to board. Comply or face charges. Still, the yacht's throttle roared, lurching forward. Harrington's men likely thinking they could outrun the smaller vessel. On the pier, uniformed officers aimed rifles, shouting warnings. Fueled by adrenaline, James refused to let them vanish. He sprinted out of Alexis's car, ignoring her shout of protest. Racing down the pier, he jumped onto a smaller speedboat moored at the edge. A startled fisherman shouted, "Hey, what the?" "Please. Urgent police matter," James panted, untying the rope. The fisherman, wide-eyed, let him go. He started the motor, glancing over his shoulder as Alexis also hurried behind with the detective. But James peeled away first, steering the speedboat after Harrington's yacht. Spray and wind battered James's face as he guided the speedboat across choppy waves. The police boat was also in pursuit, sirens wailing. Harrington's yacht gained some distance, but it was heavier, less agile. The speedboat, though smaller, had agility on its side. Heart-pounding, James angled to cut them off. He glimpsed Harrington and Laura on the yacht's deck, peering anxiously, while Griffin stood behind them, pale. He prayed no one had firearms. This was insane, but he wouldn't rest until they were caught. Up ahead, the police boat circled around, forcing the yacht to veer starboard. James gunned the speedboat's throttle, pulling alongside the yacht's port side near the stern ladder. The detective's boat closed in from the other side, cornering them. Harrington's men attempted to wave them off, but the detective brandished an arrest warrant. "Kill the engines! Hands where we can see them!" James seized the moment. With a burst of reckless courage, he leapt from the speedboat to the yacht's ladder, scraping his shins. He scrambled aboard, face twisted with fury. He locked eyes with Laura, who gasped, "James, you said you were out of town." He advanced, drenched in seawater. "Surprise! The game's over!" A chaotic scene erupted. Harrington's guards tried to block the police. Griffin stood trembling. Laura looked cornered. gold bars glinting on a side table. The detective and officers swarmed aboard, guns raised, yelling for everyone to surrender. James confronted them all at once, betrayal scalding his veins. Laura stammered. I can explain. Griffin moaned. Son, Harrington snarled. You're a dead man, meddling fool. James's voice thundered. No! You're all done. The camera panned over the chaos. Confiscated gold, doping vials, forged papers. The detective barked, Hands behind your heads! Now! Harrington's men slowly complied. In the midst of the swirl, James stood unwavering, final triumph near. The next chapters. Their humiliating downfall in full public view, arrests, trials, the end of betrayal. Revenge complete, but at what cost? Chapter 5. The roar of the yacht's engines cut off abruptly as armed officers leapt aboard, shouting for Harrington and his henchmen to freeze. The deck flooded with swirling lights, red and blue from the police boat, plus bright LED beams attached to the officers' vests. James, soaked from his jump onto the yacht, stood near the stern ladder, breathing hard, eyes flicking between Laura, Griffin, and the looming figure of Alex Harrington. Wind whipped across the harbor's surface, sending spray over the rails. Tension crackled in the air, thick as humidity on a stormy night. Harrington's bodyguards raised their hands slowly, glancing anxiously at the officers. One guard started to reach for something under his jacket, but an officer barked, "Don't move!" He froze, hands going up. Detective Alvarez, the local lead officer, coordinating with Alexis, moved in with her gun drawn, scanning faces. "Alexander Harrington," she demanded. Harrington grimaced, stepping forward with practiced arrogance, lifting his hands in a mocking surrender pose. "Yes, that's me." At his side, Laura stood trembling, mascara smudging under her eyes. She wore a tailored jacket, clearly intended for some glamorous meeting, but now she looked half drowned in panic. Griffin, on the other hand, appeared both furious and pathetic at once sagging shoulders, eyes darting to James with unspoken shame. James took a single step forward, fists tightening at his sides. "You thought you could slip away, Harrington? You thought I'd just vanish while you paid my wife millions for... His voice trembled with rage. Harrington sneered. "You're insane, James. This is a misunderstanding. My attorneys will have a field day." Laura's gaze flicked between them. "James, please don't do this. We can talk." He clenched his jaw. "No more talking. That's done." Detective Alvarez gestured for one of her uniformed officers to secure Harrington's men. "Cuff them. Check for weapons. We have probable cause for arrest on suspicion of fraud, money laundering, attempted doping." She turned her steely eyes to Harrington. "We'd also like to see what you've stowed in that cargo hold rumor says a few million in gold bars." Harrington's expression darkened. "You have no right." "We have a warrant. Courtesy of some well-placed evidence," the detective snapped, brandishing a folder. "Now, step aside." James felt a wave of grim satisfaction. This was the moment he'd craved, the downfall of Harrington's arrogant empire. He glared at Laura, heart pounding with betrayal. She opened her mouth perhaps to beg for mercy, but words failed her. Officers quickly fanned out across the yacht, rummaging through compartments. The detective signaled for another squad to board from the police boat. Within minutes, they found a hidden storage area below deck containing metal crates. Alvarez pried one open, revealing polished gold bars stacked carefully. The officers let out exclamations. "Jackpot! We got them!" Harrington tried to maintain composure. "Those bars are legally mine. My corporation..." Detective Alvarez cut him off. "We'll see about that. For now they're seized as evidence of an illegal transaction." She nodded to a colleague who began cataloging each bar's serial number. Another officer rummaged in a locked chest, discovering sealed vials labeled with sedation drug codes. That further sank Harrington's ship. She waved it at him with a cold glare. Sedatives, huh? And your plan was? Harrington's face twisted, shooting Laura a scathing look. She flinched. Meanwhile, Griffin hovered near the edge, voice low. James, please. This is a misunderstanding. He reached out as though to place a hand on James's shoulder, but James recoiled. Don't touch me, James seethed. You fathered her baby, plotted with Harrington. And now you want me to believe it's all a misunderstanding? Spare me. Griffin's eyes welled with tears. I swear, it was never meant to go this far. James's heart pounded with a swirl of rage and heartbreak. It went exactly as you let it, he muttered, stepping away. Officers led Harrington's men away in cuffs. Another pair advanced on Harrington himself, reading him his rights. Alexander Harrington, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, potential distribution of controlled substances. Harrington's jaw clenched. I want my lawyer, he hissed. Meanwhile, Laura's shoulders quaked with sobs. She turned to James, tears streaking her cheeks. James, I was in over my head. Harrington cornered me, offered me a deal I couldn't refuse. The money. I wanted us to have a better life. I never expected... James let out a harsh laugh. You sold yourself. Don't pretend it was for me. You wanted the glam, the big payout. You were ready to drug me if I interfered. She reached out trembling hands, eyes brimming with regret. Yes, I was tempted by the money, but I was scared too. Harrington threatened to ruin me if I didn't comply. She glanced at the gold-laden crates. He said we'd be set for life. I didn't know Griffin would. That was an accident. James's lip curled in disgust. An accident? You cheated with my father and took Harrington's gold. Then you tried to... He couldn't finish, the fury choking him. Detective Alvarez approached, eyes flicking between them. Laura Hadley, you're also under arrest under suspicion of conspiracy, forgery, attempted assault with sedatives. We have statements from an informant plus these vials. Hands behind your back. Laura gasped, stepping back. No! Wait, I can explain everything. But an officer seized her wrists gently, snapping on handcuffs. She sobbed, turning wide, tearful eyes on James. Please, James, don't let them do this. I'm pregnant. James's chest tightened. Pregnant with my father's child, from what I hear. She froze, horror etched on her face. He told you. He shook his head, stepping away. You told me enough, sneaking around. This is your consequence. Her sobs grew hysterical as the officer led her away. James shut his eyes briefly, pushing down the heartbreak. As two officers guided Harrington and Laura toward the police boat for transport, another approached Griffin. The older man's shoulders slumped. Look, I'm not part of this big scheme. I was worried about James. Alvarez read Griffin his rights, too. You conspired in the doping plan. We have the texts indicating you'd help them silence your son if needed. You're coming with us. Griffin's eyes pleaded with James. Son, I'll do anything to fix this. I never wanted to harm you. You gotta believe me. James stared at him with hollow eyes. There's no fixing what you did. Enjoy your cell. Two uniformed men cuffed Griffin, leading him away. He kept muttering apologies, tears streaking his weathered cheeks. James felt a pang of sorrow, recalling childhood memories of fishing trips with a father he once admired. That father was gone, replaced by a traitor. From the deck's edge, Alexis appeared with a satisfied nod, having documented the entire operation. She approached James. We got everything on tape, the gold stash, the sedation plan, confessions, good job staying calm. He let out a shaky breath, adrenaline still surging. Thanks, Alexis. You orchestrated this perfectly. I just can't believe the extent of their betrayal. She placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You did the right thing exposing them. The law will handle the rest. Are you okay? James pressed his lips together. I will be. Once they're all locked up. Alexis gave a small nod. They will be. The detective has a mountain of evidence. Detective Alvarez requested James come to the station to provide a statement. With the yacht moored and the criminals taken in separate police boats, James joined Alexis in her sedan, following the squad car caravan. The drive back to shore felt surreal, the night sky above, harbor lights reflecting on the water, the hum of finality in his chest. At the station, under fluorescent lights that buzzed quietly, James recounted everything. How he discovered Laura's suspicious behavior, the emails referencing 1.5 million, the sedation drugs, her affair with Harrington, plus hints of a fling with Griffin culminating in a possible pregnancy. The detective scribbled furiously, occasionally nodding. When James finished, Alvarez exhaled. This is beyond your average marital dispute. We're looking at felony conspiracy, potential financial fraud crossing state lines, possibly fathering a child with your father. She shook her head. Messed up. Thank you for cooperating. James managed a bitter laugh. Yeah, not the story I ever thought I'd tell. After formalities, they released him to go home, promising to keep him updated. Meanwhile, Harrington, Laura, and Griffin would be booked, interrogated, possibly posting bail if they could. But with the gold and doping scheme, bail might be denied. Wearied to the bone, James returned to his house, no longer feeling like a shared home with Laura. He flipped on a single lamp in the living room, the rest of the space dark. The quiet rang in his ears, an emptiness swallowing him. Then a soft knock sounded at the door. He stiffened, half expecting a reporter or some unholy remnant of the fiasco. He peered through the peephole. It was Nina holding a takeout bag. Concern etched her face. He opened the door, letting her in. Hey, she said softly, stepping inside. I heard from Alexis. It all went down tonight, right? He nodded, stepping aside as she entered. Yes. They're arrested. All of them. Dad included. Nina's eyes welled with empathy. Oh, James. She set the takeout bag on the coffee table, hot soup, presumably. You must be in shock. He slumped onto the couch, letting out a ragged sigh. I am, but also relieved. It's over. The illusions, the lies. Now the legal stuff begins, but at least the betrayal is out in the open. His gaze fell to the floor. She gently sat beside him, resting a hand on his forearm. I brought you some dinner in case you hadn't eaten. She paused, eyes searching his. I'm so sorry about your father. That must be the worst part. A swirl of pain flickered across his face. He was my hero, you know? All those childhood memories. Now I can't even look at him. Something in Nina's gentle presence caused James to break. Tears he'd held back for days welled up, and he found himself sobbing softly. Nina embraced him, letting him cry into her shoulder. The dam of tension and heartbreak finally cracked. It's so twisted, he choked out. I almost feel guilty that I'm relieved they're going to jail, but they left me no choice. Right? She stroked his hair soothingly. They forced your hand. You had to protect yourself. Maybe even protect others from their manipulations. You did the right thing. He sniffled, pulling away, eyes brimming but calmer. Thank you. I appreciate you. For being here. Nina offered a small, warm smile. I'm not leaving you alone in this darkness. Let's get you through it. By morning, the local media had picked up the arrests. Headlines blared, Wealthy tycoon Alexander Harrington arrested on suspicion of fraud, attempted assault. Accountant Laura Hadley also charged, and shocking betrayal involving retired marina owner Griffin Hadley. The tabloids had a field day teacher's wife involved in million-dollar scheme. Father impregnates son's wife. Doping, plan, gold bullion. People read it like a twisted soap opera. James's phone lit up with messages from concerned colleagues, from distant relatives. Nina shielded him from the worst, suggesting he let calls go to voicemail. The college administration expressed sympathy, telling James to take personal leave if needed. Students posted on social media, half in disbelief, that their mild-mannered history instructor was at the center of a sensational scandal. James sat at his kitchen table, heart swirling, half listening to the radio coverage. Nina was right, none of this was his doing, so he shouldn't feel guilt. But the humiliation stung. Late that night, after the arrests, James found himself standing on the back porch, gazing at the star-littered Maine sky. The ocean breeze carried a hint of salt and promise of change. He closed his eyes, letting the gust ruffle his hair, mind drifting. He pictured Laura's tear-streaked face as officers led her away, Father's broken sobs, Harrington's venomous glare. They're gone. For now. But the legal battles remain. A text buzzed on his phone, Alexis updating him. Harrington's bail hearing was next week. The DA might press additional charges, especially if doping and gold laundering were proven. The meltdown was total. He inhaled deeply, shoulders heavy yet somehow lighter. I've done my part. In the distance, waves crashed softly. He whispered to the silent night, I'm free of them. But the next fight court, trials I'll see it through. The camera panned up to the infinite sky, leaving James standing resolute in the hush of post-betrayal calm. Chapter 6. The morning light found James pacing his living room, scrolling through local news articles on his phone. The coverage was relentless, reporters naming Laura Hadley as the accountant in bed with Harrington, literally and figuratively. The gold bars, the doping conspiracy, it was front-page drama. He turned off his phone, overwhelmed. The hush in the house felt strange without Laura's presence, no sudden phone calls, no tense glances. He exhaled, trying to let relief wash over him, but heartbreak lingered. Months ago, I was a content teacher with a supportive wife and a father I respected. Now, everything changed in a dizzying swirl of betrayal. A knock at the door startled him. He opened it to find Detective Alvarez. She wore plain clothes today, a sympathetic expression on her face. "May I come in?" He stepped aside, nodding. Once inside, she surveyed the living room's half-empty shelves, some items James had thrown out to purge Laura's memory. She turned to him. "I wanted to update you personally. We're preparing charges against Harrington, Laura, and your father for multiple counts. Conspiracy, attempted assault with controlled substances, financial fraud. The DA is quite confident." James ran a hand through his hair. "I appreciate it. I just can't believe Dad is entangled in this. He used to be an honest marina owner." Alvarez nodded. "Sometimes greed or lust overrides family bonds. I'm sorry you have to see it firsthand." He exhaled shakily. "What happens next?" She explained the steps. Bail hearings, arraignments, possibly a grand jury. "We may ask you to testify about what you witnessed. The doping angle is big, particularly since Harrington's men plan to frame you. Also, the forging of signatures, especially by your wife, is a key piece." James swallowed. "Yes, I'll do whatever's needed." Alvarez studied him gently. "Good. And if you need emotional support, the department can recommend therapy. This is a heavy ordeal." He forced a grateful smile. "Thank you. I might take you up on that." That afternoon, James retreated to campus, attempting to salvage a sense of normalcy by teaching a shortened history lecture. After class, Nina approached, concern etched into her features. "The students, they're curious, you know, but they're also on your side." He mustered a small grin. "I appreciate that. Hard to focus on teaching about colonial revolutions when my life's in turmoil." She patted his shoulder. "If you want, I can help handle some lectures or grade extra papers to lighten your load. Just say the word." He shook his head, touched by her kindness. "Thank you, truly. But I need the distraction. Teaching helps me remember I'm still me, not just the guy in that scandal." She offered a supportive smile. "All right. But if you need relief, I'm here." Outside, a few faculty members gave James sympathetic nods. One co-worker, a math professor named Dr. Carter, approached awkwardly. "James, I heard about your father. Man, that's tough. If you need a break, the department can rearrange your schedule." James nodded in thanks. "I'll manage, but I appreciate it. Just prefer to keep my routine." Carter gave a lopsided grin. "You're brave. If I learned my father impregnated my wife, I'd lose it." He realized his phrasing was blunt, wincing. "Sorry." James shrugged, forcing a half laugh. "No worries. The situation is beyond normal comprehension." He parted ways, half smiling at the irony. Everyone saw him as a tragic figure of humiliation, yet he wanted them to realize he was forging a path of revenge and resolution. That evening, as James prepared a simple dinner, his phone buzzed with a number he recognized as the local jail. He hesitated, then answered. A recorded message indicated an inmate call from Laura. He almost ended it, but something compelled him to accept, perhaps curiosity about her mindset. Her voice cracked through the line. "James, please hear me out. I'm so sorry. I never meant for all this to happen. Harrington manipulated me. I only wanted the money for us." He cut in, voice cold. "You wanted the money for yourself. Don't pretend it was for me. And you slept with my father." A ragged sob. "It was an accident, a drunken mistake, but yes, it happened. I'm ashamed. Harrington threatened to ruin my career if I didn't follow through. I swear I was stuck." James's hand shook, gripping the phone. "You drugged me, or planned to. That's not stuck. That's malicious. Save your excuses for the judge." She let out a wail. "The baby might be yours, you know. We never tested anything." "Maybe," he barked a bitter laugh. "I have DNA labs and your father-in-law's confession. Don't lie about paternity to me." A stunned pause. Then she wept. "I hate myself. But you can help me if you speak to the DA, ask for leniency. Say you believe I was coerced." He bristled. "After all you did, you expect me to bail you out? You're delusional." She whispered, "Please, I still love you in my own messed-up way. Don't let me rot here." His chest burned with a swirl of heartbreak. "You deserve to rot. Good night." He ended the call, slamming the phone onto the counter. The conversation left him trembling with tears. Despite his fury, a pang of sadness gnawed at him. This woman had once been the love of his life. They planned a future on these Maine shores. Now she was a stranger, undone by greed and an affair with his own father. He paced the living room, fists clenching. He recalled the first time he introduced Laura to Griffin, how they'd laughed over grilled fish. How did it go from that to fathering her child? A swirl of regret and anger churned, but he clung to the knowledge. She did this, not me. She tried doping me, forging my name, humiliating me. I must stand firm. The day after, Alexis phoned James with updates. "The DA is building a strong case. They might aim for a plea bargain with Harrington if he confesses to the doping plan, but they also want him on record about forging documents. Meanwhile, Laura tries to claim she's a victim, but the evidence shows she was actively complicit. Griffin's role is smaller, but morally horrific. James sighed. I want them all to face maximum consequences. If Harrington tries to buy a lesser sentence, I hope the DA refuses. Alexis paused. They might consider his confession valuable, especially if it reveals bigger crimes in his real estate empire. But you can testify to the personal harm he caused that can influence sentencing. He gave a grim nod. Then I'll do that. They can't let him walk with a slap on the wrist. Meanwhile, Nina discovered something that might further incriminate Harrington. She approached James after a faculty meeting, rummaging in her bag. Look, I recognized Harrington's face from an old article. He was investigated for similar hush-money deals with other married women in neighboring states. The story got buried, likely by payoffs. She handed James a printed article from an obscure blog. It detailed allegations from a woman who claimed Harrington paid her to keep quiet about an affair, even threatened her with sedation. The blog ended abruptly, presumably after legal intimidation. Nina's eyes shone with determination. If we show the DA this, it proves a pattern of exploitation. James's lips curled into a grim smile. Perfect. Another nail in his coffin. Despite the forward momentum, James's emotional burden took a toll. One night, he woke from a nightmare, drenched in sweat. He'd dreamed of walking into the old cabin, finding Griffin cradling Laura's pregnant belly, both laughing at James's pain. The horror jolted him awake, heart thundering. He staggered into the bathroom, splashing cold water on his face, meeting his own reflection with hollow eyes. They ruined my sense of safety, he whispered. But I refuse to be broken. Steeling himself, he texted Nina. Can't sleep. You awake? She replied instantly. Yes. Call me. They spoke for an hour, her gentle voice grounding him. You're allowed to grieve, James. This is a huge betrayal. But remember, you're not alone. He hung up, feeling a tad calmer, aware that while heartbreak clawed at him, he'd chosen a path of unflinching retribution. Within weeks, the DA announced the official trial date for Harrington, Laura, and Griffin 2 months away, with the possibility of a combined trial if the judge approved. The charges included conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, forging legal documents, and attempted assault with controlled substances. Additional moral condemnation for fathering a child with his son's wife, while shocking, wasn't a legal charge, but certainly tarnished Griffin's standing. James braced for the spectacle. Reporters, daily coverage, scandalous revelations. The campus staff quietly supported him, though some gossiped behind closed doors. He focused on preparing to testify to ensure none of them escaped rightful punishment. One night, after finalizing some lecture notes, James sank onto his living room couch, staring at the silent phone. The main players Laura, Griffin, Harrington sat in jail, presumably plotting legal defense. The swirl of heartbreak hadn't fully subsided, but he felt an odd sense of calm. I've done all I can to set the stage for their downfall. Next step? The trial. Public exposure of every last detail. He gazed at the ocean through the window, the moonlight dancing on gentle waves. Soon, the world will hear the truth. Soon they'll face the consequences of their vile acts. The camera panned out, leaving James in hushed determination, ready for the final showdown. Chapter 7. The weeks leading to the trial felt like a slow march through thick mud for James. Each day, new developments surfaced. The DA refining charges, Laura's public defender petitioning for bail, repeatedly denied. Harrington's high-priced legal team churning out motions. Griffin, meanwhile, had acquired a modest attorney, but with limited funds, marina assets frozen, and overwhelming evidence, his case looked dire. James found himself in endless meetings with the DA's office, going over details like how he discovered Laura's emails, the deposit box evidence, the doping plan. Nina and Alexis helped him stay calm, reminding him he was the victim, not the culprit. One morning, the prosecutor, Ms. Delgado, a sharp-eyed woman with a clipped tone, walked James through potential cross-examination. Defense might claim you set them up out of jealousy, that you lured Harrington onto that yacht. You must stay factual. Emphasize you merely exposed their wrongdoing. He nodded wearily. I'll keep it straight. They can't spin father impregnating wife or doping plans as my fault. She gave a small, approving nod. Exactly. While James prepared on the outside, inside the county jail, tension simmered among Harrington, Laura, and Griffin. Various rumors trickled out, Harrington blaming Laura for being unprofessional and exposing them, Laura tearfully accusing Harrington of using her for vile amusements, Griffin distancing from them both. The once-allied conspirators turned on each other to lighten their individual sentences. Local reporters gleaned these rifts. Headlines read, "Conspirators clash. Betrayal among betrayers." James only skimmed the news, half disgusted, half grimly satisfied. They're devouring each other. Alexis discovered a key witness. Marjorie Chen, a former assistant to Harrington, who'd once handled hush money transfers. She reached out to Alexis, claiming she possessed incriminating emails showing Harrington's routine of paying married women, forging NDAs, and using sedation threats if they balked. Now, tired of living in fear, she wanted to come clean. Alexis arranged a meeting in her office with James present. Marjorie, a petite woman, with anxious eyes, laid out documents, wire confirmations, internal memos referencing 24-hour amusements, references to L. Hadley. James's stomach twisted seeing official evidence that Harrington systematically exploited women for sex, paying large sums. Laura was just another name on the list, though the biggest payday yet. Marjorie's voice trembled as she recounted how Harrington bragged about hooking the accountant wife of some naive teacher, forging her name on secret accounts, and roping her father-in-law into the scheme for added drama. James felt physically ill hearing Harrington had boasted about the father twist, as if it were a thrilling anecdote. Alexis thanked Marjorie warmly, guaranteeing the DA would appreciate her cooperation. James offered a tight smile. "You're doing the right thing," he said. She nodded, tears in her eyes, murmuring an apology for not speaking sooner. That night, James went home and sank onto his bed, overwrought. The final jigsaw pieces had fallen into place. Harrington had practically orchestrated a soap opera-level humiliation money for Laura, doping plans, encouraging her father-in-law's involvement as a sick novelty. The horror weighed on James like an anchor. He paced the bedroom, running a hand over the spot where Laura once slept. He recalled the early days, sweet pillow talk, morning kisses, hopes for building a family. Now, she carried a baby fathered by Griffin, while also collecting hush money from Harrington. I can't imagine a deeper betrayal. He tried not to scream from the raw sting. But every time despair rose, a fierce sense of purpose overshadowed it. The trial would reveal every monstrous detail. The world would see how they used him, how they sold their souls for gold. He wouldn't crumble. Not after coming this far. In the final days before the trial, local talk shows and tabloids ramped up coverage. Teacher's wife into an aller sex scandal. Father impregnates son's spouse. Gold and doping plot. The salaciousness was unstoppable. James tried ignoring it, focusing on final testimony prep. The college shielded him from reporters, politely announcing he was on partial leave. Nina visited frequently, checking on him. They'd share quiet dinners, her presence a balm to his battered soul. One evening, she gently asked, "After the trial, do you think you'll leave Maine? Start fresh somewhere else?" He considered. "I love this coastline. It's my home. Why let them drive me away? I might stay, keep teaching, show everyone betrayal can be survived." Nina nodded, admiration glowing in her eyes. Midweek, James got a call from a public defender representing Griffin. The attorney said Griffin wanted to meet James privately, possibly to strike a deal about revealing more about Harrington's empire. James refused. "I have nothing to say to him. Let him talk to the DA." The attorney insisted. "He's your father. He regrets everything. Don't you want closure?" James's throat tightened with rage. "He lost that chance when he betted my wife." He ended the call, chest heaving. If Griffin thought familial tears would reduce his sentence, he was mistaken. At last, the first day of trial dawned bright and cold. The courthouse was packed with spectators, news cameras, curious locals. James arrived early, accompanied by Ms. Delgado, the lead prosecutor, and Alexis, unofficial moral support. Nina had offered to wait outside, not wanting to cause a media frenzy. Inside, Harrington, Laura, and Griffin sat at the defense table, each with separate counsel. James's heart gave a lurch seeing Laura in a plain prison jumpsuit, a hint of a baby bump showing under the baggy fabric. She refused to meet his eyes. Griffin appeared gaunt, shoulders drooping. Harrington maintained a haughty posture, though his hair was disheveled, and his tailored suit replaced by standard-issue clothes. The judge, an older woman with stern features named Judge McAllister, called the court to order. The bailiff read out the charges: conspiracy, financial fraud, forging documents, doping attempt, potential sexual exploitation. A hush fell over the room. Ms. Delgado delivered a scathing opening, detailing how Harrington lured married women into high-priced arrangements, how Laura took the offer, forging her husband's signature on accounts, how they conspired to dope James if he interfered, how Griffin fathered Laura's child, adding a vile twist. She portrayed James as an unwitting victim who bravely exposed them. The jury looked riveted, shock rippling across the gallery. Whispers floated. The father impregnated his son's wife. Gold bars worth millions? Doping plan, how insane. James, seated behind the prosecution, felt a swirl of dread, but also satisfaction. This is what he wanted: the public to see the ugliness. Each defendant's lawyer tried deflecting blame. Harrington's counsel claimed he was a legitimate investor, that the gold was legal, and Laura misrepresented her marital status. They insisted doping references were jokes, not an actual plan. Laura's public defender painted her as coerced by Harrington, driven to protect James from financial ruin, forced to fake love. She barely touched the father angle, a sign of the defense's disarray. Griffin's attorney claimed Griffin was ignorant of the doping plan, merely fell for Laura's seduction, not a major conspirator. He apologized for moral failings, but insisted he never meant to harm James physically. The judge listened impassively, jaws set. The jury seemed skeptical, gleaning from earlier prosecution scorn. By late afternoon, the trial recessed for the day. James stepped out into the courthouse corridor, tension radiating through his veins. Cameras flashed, reporters shouting, "Mr. Hadley, how do you feel seeing your father accused? Did you really discover your wife's pregnancy with your father's child?" He refused to speak, pushing past them into the parking lot, heart pounding. The real fireworks would begin once the evidence surfaced: recordings, deposit logs, doping vials, the humiliating revelations about father and wife. By tomorrow, the entire town would know every detail. He climbed into his car, resting his forehead on the steering wheel. This is the path I chose. As horrifying as it was, he wouldn't turn back. The downfall was fully in motion, unstoppable now. Chapter 8. Day 2 of the trial opened with a charged atmosphere. The courtroom was more crowded, spectators jockeying for seats. James, wearing a subdued navy suit, took his place behind Ms. Delgado's table. He glanced across the aisle. Laura, Griffin, and Harrington sat with their defense teams, each looking worn from a sleepless night. The prosecutor wasted no time calling witnesses, unveiling the treasure trove of evidence, bank logs showing massive transfers from Harrington's shell companies to an account labeled LL Holdings, plus gold bullion receipts. Email chains where Laura negotiated one night in Aspen for $1. $5 million, referencing her unavailable husband. A digital copy of the doping plan, referencing sedative vials. The jury listened, expressions darkening with every new piece. Ms. Delgado hammered the theme. This was not random infidelity. It was a premeditated assault on James Hadley's autonomy, forging his signature, doping him, humiliating him beyond measure. Finally, Ms. Delgado called James to testify. He approached the witness stand, heart pounding. The bailiff had him swear an oath. Then Ms. Delgado guided him through his discovery, how he noticed Laura's late-night calls, the suspicious Aspen trip, how he found incriminating emails, how he enlisted a PI, Alexis, to confirm the gold deposits and doping references. His father's confession about sleeping with Laura and fathering her child. James spoke calmly, though emotion laced his voice. He recounted how they planned to drug him if he interfered, how Harrington systematically exploited women, and how Laura forged James's name to hide finances. The jury watched him intently, some with expressions of pity, others outraged on his behalf. Harrington's attorney, a sharp-featured man, attempted to poke holes in James's story. Mr. Hadley, you installed cameras and recorded your wife's calls without her consent. Weren't you invading her privacy? James stared him down. In Maine, one-party consent is allowed, especially in my own home. She was forging my name and plotting doping. My invasion of privacy was to protect myself. I have no regrets. The lawyer huffed, pivoting. Isn't it possible you orchestrated a setup, fueling your father's attraction to Laura? Just to create a scandal? James's lips curled with disgust. That's absurd. I had zero desire for my father to impregnate my wife. Are you even hearing yourself? A ripple of uneasy laughter spread among the gallery. The judge admonished for quiet. Harrington's lawyer frowned, stepping back with no real recourse. Next, Laura's public defender rose, a middle-aged woman with a gentler tone but a tough edge. James, you claim Laura was willingly complicit. Did you ever see her actually take money from Harrington? Or did you only see bank logs? He exhaled. I saw bank logs, plus her own emails describing the amounts. She wrote, 1, $5 million plus additional gold for continued discretion. That's direct evidence. The lawyer tried a different angle. Could Laura have been coerced by Harrington? Threatened into forging documents? James shrugged. She never told me about being threatened. She never asked for help. She acted eager for the money, referencing a plan to upgrade our life. That's not the cry of a coerced victim. Laura, seated at the defense table, appeared tearful, shaking her head. The lawyer pressed, Isn't it possible she hid it out of shame? He swallowed. Possible, but unlikely. She prepared doping vials to keep me docile if needed. That's not an act of a helpless victim. That's an accomplice. Lastly, Griffin's attorney, a tired-looking public defender, stepped up. Mr. Hadley, your father claims his affair with Laura was a single mistake during a vulnerable moment. Do you dispute that? James steeled himself. I don't care if it was 1 time or 10. Fact is, he betrayed me. He knowingly engaged with my wife. And as for the doping plot text messages show, he agreed to help if I became troublesome. The lawyer nodded slowly, attempting sympathy. You must acknowledge your father loves you. Regrets this lapse. James's voice iced over. A father who loves me wouldn't impregnate my wife or assist in doping me. He made his bed. A hush fell. The attorney stepped away, conceding. Next, the defense called Griffin to the stand, hoping a personal appeal might sway the jury. He stumbled through an explanation of how he and Laura accidentally crossed a line, how Harrington pushed them, claiming to only want to protect James. He offered trembling apologies. Ms. Delgado rose for cross-exam, unleashing a barrage. Is it protecting your son to father his wife's child? Is it protecting him to assist Harrington with doping, if James objected? Griffin looked stricken, voice cracking. I was manipulated too. Harrington dangled easy money for my Marina. I was naive. She shot back. Naive enough to impregnate your son's wife? Let's be real, Mr. Hadley. You did this for greed and lust. The gallery murmured in shock. Griffin sagged, tears rolling down his cheeks, unable to counter effectively. The defense then called Laura. She rose, hands shaking, face blotchy from tears. She described how Harrington wooed her with million-dollar promises, how she felt overshadowed by James's modest teacher salary, longing for a luxurious life. I didn't set out to betray James. I wanted a better future for us. Harrington took advantage. Ms. Delgado, on cross-exam, zeroed in. But you used doping threats, forged James's signature. That's not a typical forced scenario. That's active criminal participation. She produced an email. Laura had typed, "We'll do whatever it takes to keep James quiet. If we must slip him the sedative, so be it." Laura burst into sobs. I was overwhelmed, desperate. Harrington said it was harmless, just enough to make James confused so he wouldn't meddle. I hated it. But I felt trapped. The prosecutor pounced. Trapped enough to also sleep with his father? That was Harrington's idea, too? Laura trembled, face ashen. No. That was a separate moment of weakness. I was lonely. Griffin was there. Ms. Delgado cut in with a razor tone. So you expect the jury to pity you for cheating on your husband with his father and collecting hush money from another man? That's some weakness. Laura sobbed uncontrollably, lost for words. The judge signaled for decorum. The gallery's hush was thick, tension high. Finally, Harrington took the stand. He tried a suave approach, claiming all transactions were consensual adult arrangements. That the doping references were kinky roleplay talk, not real threats. He insisted the gold was legitimate investment bars, not hush money. Ms. Delgado unleashed recorded phone calls, including bits from Marjorie Chen, the ex-employee, revealing Harrington's pattern of paying women for secrecy. Harrington's composure cracked, face reddening. He stuttered. That was a separate scenario. This is out of context. Ms. Delgado hammered the doping angle. Is it also out of context that you texted Laura, "Ensure your husband is out cold if he disrupts us"? The doc can supply the sedative. Harrington's jaw clenched. It was figurative speech, not an actual plan. She displayed vials labeled with shipping info to Harrington's address. The jury looked appalled. After days of witness testimonies and cross-exams, the trial neared conclusion. The prosecution delivered a scathing closing, summarizing Harrington's monstrous pattern of seducing married women with large sums of money, Laura's betrayal of her husband for greed, forging documents, agreeing to doping, Griffin's moral and legal failure, fathering a child with his son's wife, aiding a doping scheme. Ms. Delgado ended with, "They annihilated James Hadley's life for money, lust, and vanity. Let the record show how low greed can sink." The defense tried to sow doubt, painting James as an overly suspicious husband who entrapped them with secret recordings. They claimed Griffin was a confused older man seduced by Laura. Harrington's counsel insisted the doping references were fantasies, not real. Laura's public defender sobbed about her vulnerability, but none of it seemed convincing given the weight of evidence. As the jury began deliberations, James stood outside the courthouse steps, gazing at the throng of reporters. Nina hovered beside him for moral support, Alexis close by with an encouraging nod. The cold wind whipped across the crowd. Everything hinged on the jury's verdict. Would they see the monstrous depth of this conspiracy? Would Harrington, Laura, and Griffin face the punishment they deserved? James inhaled, the swirl of heartbreak and relief surging in his chest. We're at the finish line. Soon, a verdict would be read, and the betrayers who shattered his life would either face justice or slip away. Tension soared. The final outcome loomed around the corner. Chapter 9. A steely gray sky greeted James as he stepped out of his modest coastal home, the salt-scented breeze cold against his cheeks. Today, the jury would deliver its verdict on Laura, Griffin, and Alex Harrington. His stomach churned at the thought. Everything could hinge on this moment. He carefully locked the door, checking the handle twice as if ensuring the security of his new reality. The old life marital illusions, misguided family ties lay shattered. I want them found guilty, he thought grimly, stepping into his SUV. Guilty on every count. During the short drive to the courthouse, he silently rehearsed his hopes, that the jury believed all the evidence, saw through the defense's excuses. He refused to let anxiety swamp him. I've done all I can, he reminded himself. Time to see if justice truly prevails. At the parking lot, a swarm of reporters hovered like gulls around a fishing boat. Cameras snapped, bright lights winked. James inhaled, steeling himself. Then he exited his car, head high, ignoring the shouted questions. Mr. Hadley, how do you feel about your father's involvement? Will you see your wife's baby if she's convicted? He pressed forward, glancing at the imposing courthouse steps. Nina awaited him halfway up, wearing a supportive half-smile. She'd taken off teaching today to stand by him. Her presence offered a warm anchor in the sea of chaos. He gave her a nod, appreciative. Then they ascended side by side, ignoring the paparazzi behind them. Inside, the grand foyer bustled with attorneys, family members, spectators. Alexis approached, her posture confident, carrying a thick folder of final documents. James, she greeted, eyes scanning his face for tension. You holding up okay? He shrugged, voice tight. As well as can be expected. Are we sure the jury saw the doping evidence clearly? Alexis nodded. Ms. Delgado did a solid job presenting the sedation vials, plus text messages referencing them. Harrington's attempt to frame it as kinky role play came off laughable. The jury won't buy it. He exhaled. Good. They moved together down the corridor, passing uniformed officers. At the designated courtroom, they found Ms. Delgado seated at the prosecution table. She waved them over. They should bring the defendants in soon. The jury's already indicated they have a verdict. That was quick. James's gut fluttered with nerves. Usually, a quick verdict signaled strong consensus, hopefully guilt on all counts. A side door opened. 2 bailiffs escorted Alex Harrington in shackles. He wore a rumpled suit, hair unkempt. His once cocky air replaced by a tired scowl. Right behind him, Laura emerged, pregnant belly faintly visible under her loose jumpsuit, eyes darting nervously. Finally, Griffin shuffled in, face drawn, shoulders hunched. They each took seats behind their respective defense lawyers. James caught Laura's gaze for a fleeting instant. She blinked, tears welling, then looked away. She's probably hoping for some measure of pity, James thought, chest twisting with a swirl of heartbreak and resentment. Meanwhile, Griffin stared at the ground, refusing eye contact with anyone. From the gallery, an ominous hush spread. Spectators, reporters, acquaintances, everyone waited for the jury to file in. Nina stood near the back, arms folded, watching the spectacle. Alexis quietly took a seat next to James. Judge McAllister, stern and unyielding, entered. The bailiff called, "All rise." Everyone stood. Once seated, the judge announced, "We've been informed the jury has reached a unanimous verdict in the matter of the People v. Harrington, Hadley, and Hadley. Counsel, please be seated. Defendants, please rise." Harrington, Laura, and Griffin stood, flanked by their lawyers. A hush so profound settled that James heard his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. The jurors filed in, somber-faced, clutching verdict forms. The foreman, a middle-aged woman in a neat blazer, held a paper. "Your Honor, the jury finds—" She paused, scanning the names. She began, "For Alexander Harrington, on the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud, guilty. On the charge of money laundering, guilty. On the charge of forging documents, guilty. On the charge of attempted assault with controlled substances, guilty." A ripple of gasps and hushed murmurs spread. Harrington's jaw clenched. He shot a glare at the jury foreman, then at James, lips curling in silent rage. James felt a surge of triumph and relief. Yes, Harrington won't slither free. The foreman continued. "For Laura Hadley, on the charge of conspiracy, guilty. On the charge of financial fraud, guilty. On the charge of forging legal documents, guilty. On the charge of attempted assault with controlled substances, guilty." Laura let out a strangled sob, hands flying to her mouth. The gallery buzzed with shock. Her lawyer tried to hush her. James's breath caught. She's guilty across the board. The swirl of heartbreak reminded him once more. She had chosen this path. Finally, for Griffin Hadley, on the charge of conspiracy, guilty. On the charge of aiding financial fraud, guilty. On the charge of complicity in attempted assault, guilty. Griffin's knees wobbled, eyes fluttering shut as if about to faint. The judge nodded sharply. "The defendants are found guilty on all respective counts. We'll set a separate sentencing date. Court is adjourned." The bang of the gavel sealed their fate. A hush, then an eruption of murmuring. The bailiffs swiftly recuffed the defendants. Harrington's lawyer muttered something about appeals, while Laura wept openly and Griffin stood numb. James inhaled, eyes shut. A wave of justice and relief washed over him. The conspirators were, at last, condemned. Exiting the courthouse, James and Alexis found the press thronging the steps, microphones thrust forward. Cameras flashed, voices shouting, "Mr. Hadley, how do you feel about your father's guilty verdict? Will you forgive your wife for fathering your dad's baby? Did you anticipate a clean sweep of convictions?" James paused briefly, meeting Nina's gaze. She gave him a small nod, an unspoken message. "It's your call if you speak." He turned to the reporters, cleared his throat. "I'm grateful to the jury for seeing the truth. Justice is served. That's all I have to say." A storm of further questions rained down, but he strode away, Alexis and Nina shielding him from the chaos. The crisp autumn air tasted sweeter than it had in months. They're all found guilty. This is real. In the following days, updates from the jail indicated Harrington raged at his lawyers planning an appeal. Laura reportedly spent her time in tears, occasionally writing letters she hoped to send to James, all blocked by her attorney's advice. Griffin fell into a sullen depression, refusing to speak to anyone. None could change the verdict. Meanwhile, Ms. Delgado prepared for sentencing, telling James the judge's track record suggested harsh penalties for such high-profile moral and financial crimes. "Don't expect a light sentence. The doping alone is severe, not to mention the gold laundering." James found solace in that. They deserve the maximum. Late one evening, James sat on his porch, ignoring the swirling news coverage. The hush of the ocean reminded him of all he'd lost and all he'd gained in self-respect, knowledge, resolve. The criminals were found guilty, but sentencing still lay ahead. Another confrontation in court. Another wave of drama. He sipped tea, grateful Nina had left him a warm dinner earlier. Soon, we'll see them receive final punishment. He gazed at the starlit sky. For the first time in months, the tension in his chest felt lighter. They can't hurt me now. Chapter 10. In the weeks after the guilty verdict, life settled into a tense waiting game. The court scheduled a sentencing hearing 3 weeks out, giving the prosecution time to compile a recommended sentence. James continued teaching part-time, leaning on Nina's unwavering friendship. He spent quiet evenings alone, grappling with conflicting emotions, a thirst for vengeance sated by the guilty verdict, yet also sorrow at how thoroughly his marriage, father-son bond, and illusions had been destroyed. He frequently texted Alexis, who updated him on the legal scuttlebutt. Harrington's defense threatened appeals, but the judge had refused post-trial motions to overturn the verdict. Laura's lawyer requested a leniency hearing due to her pregnancy, but Ms. Delgado planned to argue the unborn child's father was James's father, an even more disturbing factor that shouldn't reduce punishment. Meanwhile, Griffin filed a statement asking for mercy based on age and emotional duress, which Ms. Delgado found laughable. As the sentencing date neared, James felt the weight of finality. This will decide whether they walk free in a few years or spend decades behind bars. He prayed the judge recognized their monstrous acts. One breezy afternoon, Nina invited James for a casual lunch at a cafe near campus. They sat outside, sipping iced tea under an umbrella. The conversation drifted to mundane topics: fall semester plans, the college's new history software, until Nina took a soft breath, eyes earnest. "James, there's something I need to say. I've been feeling it for a while, but I didn't want to burden you with more stress." She fiddled with her straw, cheeks flushing. "I care about you. More than just as a friend, I think I'm falling for you." His chest tightened. He'd suspected her compassion went beyond mere friendship. Her frequent check-ins, the comforting embraces. Yet hearing her say it stirred complicated emotions. Warmth, gratitude, a bit of confusion. "Nina," he began softly. She quickly added, "I know you're still healing from the betrayal, not to mention the father angle. I'm not pushing. I just wanted you to know. I'll stand by you, whatever pace you choose." He swallowed, a swirl of relief and fear. "That means a lot, Nina. I care about you too. Honestly, the idea of trusting again is scary. But you've been my rock." She offered a gentle, hopeful smile. "I can wait. We can keep it slow, see where life goes after sentencing." He exhaled, forcing a small smile in return. "I'd like that, no pressure, just honesty." They toasted iced teas, a quiet, tender moment overshadowed by the approaching sentencing. But for James, it felt like a glimmer of possibility in a battered heart. At home, James found a bundle of letters forwarded by Ms. Delgado Laura's attempts to contact him from jail. The prosecutor asked if James wanted to read them or discard. After hesitation, he decided to skim them, curious if she'd reveal any last confessions. The letters reeked of desperation. "James, I'm so sorry. Harrington coerced me. I was scared. I still love you. I never meant to impregnate with your father. It just happened when I was drunk and lonely. Please, can we fix things? I might get 10 years or more. If you speak on my behalf, the judge might reduce it. Think of our earlier dreams. Don't let me rot in prison. This baby might still be yours. We can do a test after it's born. Don't trust the DNA labs from Harrington. He's manipulative. James read them with a numb sense of disbelief. She's still lying, or in denial, or both. The paternal test was conclusive. He tossed the letters in the trash, heart unwavering. She reaps what she sowed. A day later, Ms. Delgado called again, stating Griffin wrote an official apology letter. She asked if James wanted to read it or have it filed away. Against his better judgment, James said yes, he'd look at it, hoping for final closure. The letter read, "Son, I can't express my regret enough. I betrayed your trust in the worst possible way. It started with small flirtations that I never intended to escalate, but lust and greed consumed me. I know it's unforgivable. If you can find it in your heart to speak leniently at the sentencing, I'd be grateful, but I don't expect it. I deserve punishment. I just hope one day you see beyond this moment. Remember some good in me, if ever. Your father, Griffin." James closed his eyes, tears pricking behind his lids. He recalled fond childhood memories of fishing trips, fatherly advice, now overshadowed by vile betrayal. He set the letter aside, whispered a shaky, "It's too late, Dad." As the sentencing date approached, rumors flew that Harrington's defense might produce new evidence to reduce his sentence, some alleged philanthropic donations, or claim mental health issues. Ms. Delgado warned James to brace for a dramatic hearing. He's desperate not to spend decades in prison. Laura's pregnancy also complicated matters. Her lawyer filed a motion for lesser punishment due to maternal health. Ms. Delgado retorted that the father was the victim's father, a factor of deeper moral gravity, not a reason for leniency. The judge scheduled a special hearing to address these arguments. Griffin tried to argue advanced age, claiming ill health. But Ms. Delgado found old medical reports showing he was robust enough to handle daily marina tasks. The judge remained unimpressed by these attempts, calling them thin excuses. James, receiving these updates, felt both anxious and resolute. They can plead all they want. The truth stands. One evening, Nina arrived at James's place with groceries to cook dinner. They worked side by side in the kitchen, chopping veggies, sharing casual banter. Amid the domestic calm, James's mind drifted to what life might be like if he dared to open his heart again, maybe with Nina, someone loyal, kind, without hidden agendas. The thought warmed him, even as the looming sentencing day hovered. When they sat down to eat, she gently asked, "How are you feeling about facing them again in court? The sentencing can be intense." He inhaled, setting down his fork. "Nervous. But also I want to see their faces when the judge hands down punishment. That might give me closure." Nina nodded, eyes reflecting quiet empathy. "You deserve it. And after this, maybe you can truly move on." He smiled softly. "I hope so." At last, the sentencing day arrived. The courthouse brimmed with onlookers, even more than for the verdict. People wanted to witness the final condemnation. James slipped in, flanked by Ms. Delgado, while Alexis found a seat in the back. Nina chose to remain outside, not wanting to crowd him. Harrington, Laura, and Griffin, each in prison jumpsuits, were led to the defense table under guard. Their expressions ranged from resigned to desperate. Harrington clenched his jaw, face pale. Laura looked disheveled, about 7 months pregnant, eyes ringed with exhaustion. Griffin appeared thinner, shoulders slumped, hair grayer. He occasionally flicked glances at James, but James refused eye contact. Judge McAllister entered, solemnly calling the session to order. She confirmed the guilty verdicts, then stated, We are here to pronounce sentences for these convicted felons. Let's proceed. Ms. Delgado presented the prosecution's recommendations. Harrington, 15-20 years in prison for conspiracy, money laundering, doping attempt, plus massive fines and forfeiture of assets. Laura, 10-15 years for conspiracy, forging documents, doping, with no special leniency for pregnancy given the moral dimension. Griffin, 7 to 10 years for conspiracy, doping complicity plus moral aggravation, though not an official charge, it influences harsh sentencing. She cited the monstrous betrayal, the plan to dope James, the child's paternity scandal. They defrauded and humiliated an innocent man, risking his life with sedation. No mercy is warranted. One by one, each defense lawyer attempted to mitigate. Harrington's counsel claimed he'd built philanthropic endeavors, donated to charities. So a lengthy prison term was excessive. The judge frowned, unimpressed. Laura's lawyer tearfully invoked her pregnancy, citing how the child needed a mother. She's remorseful, they insisted. The judge's gaze stayed cold, referencing the unborn child's father was the victim's father. That aggravates the situation, the judge noted. Griffin's attorney argued advanced age, claims of a single moment of weakness. Ms. Delgado pointed out the doping plan was premeditated, not a single slip. The judge listened, expression stony. At the close of the day, the judge announced she'd review all arguments overnight and deliver final sentences in the morning. The defendants were led out, Harrington sneering at the press, Laura sobbing quietly, Griffin looking hollow. James stood there, fists clenched, bracing for one last night of tension before the final blow landed. Chapter 11. A crisp dawn broke, and James arrived at the courthouse with Nina by his side. The final day of sentencing had a hush, an air of finality. He wore a sober gray suit, face set. Nina gave his hand a reassuring squeeze. By tonight, it'll be over. He nodded gratefully. Together, they stepped through the swirling crowd of reporters, ignoring the cameras. Inside, Ms. Delgado waited at the prosecution table, confident in her approach. Harrington, Laura, and Griffin filed in soon after, each bearing the strain of sleepless nights. Judge McAllister entered, a stern calm about her. Everyone stood. Once seated, the judge wasted no time. We reconvene to pronounce sentences for these convicted defendants. Having reviewed arguments, evidence, and aggravating factors, I am prepared to deliver my decision. A collective intake of breath from the gallery. Harrington's jaw tensed. Laura's hands trembled over her pregnant belly. Griffin stared at the floor. The judge began with Harrington. Mr. Harrington, your crimes involve a pattern of exploitation, money laundering, forging legal documents, and attempted assault via sedation. The moral turpitude is immense. I also note a repeated pattern with other women, though not charged here. It shows a lifestyle of manipulation. I see no mitigating factor that outweighs these. Therefore, I sentence you to 18 years in state prison, plus a $2 million fine and forfeiture of your assets linked to these deals. A stunned hush. Harrington's face darkened with rage. He tried to speak, but the judge cut him off. One more outburst and I'll hold you in contempt. James felt a fierce sense of vindication swirl inside him. Harrington's empire shattered. Next, Laura Hadley, the judge intoned, eyes piercing. You stand convicted of conspiracy, forging your husband's signature, financial fraud, and attempted assault with sedation. You also knowingly engaged in unethical sexual relationships for monetary gain, resulting in deep personal harm to your spouse. Laura's shoulders shook, tears streaming as the judge continued. While your pregnancy is noted, I find it an aggravating factor that the father is your husband's own father, showing a brazen disregard for marital vows. No legitimate reason to reduce your sentence. Thus, You are hereby sentenced to 12 years in state prison, with eligibility for parole after 8 years and restitution for forged accounts. Your unborn child's custody upon birth will be determined by Child Services, as you'll be incarcerated. This court finds no basis for leniency." Laura collapsed into muffled sobs, clutching her belly, anguish etched on her face. James watched with stone-cold calm, recalling every vile act she committed. 12 years, that seems fair. Finally, the judge turned to Griffin. Silence thickened. "Griffin Hadley, your betrayal of your own son is morally reprehensible. You aided a doping plan, fathered your son's wife's child, and participated in conspiracies. While you are older, I see no compelling reason to show mercy. Hence, I sentence you to 8 years in state prison. You must also pay penalties for your role in the financial fraud. Your moral failing is extraordinary, though not a separate legal charge. It influences my decision. May you reflect on your actions behind bars." Griffin's lips parted in a silent gasp, tears sliding down his cheeks. He turned as if to glance at James, but James refused eye contact, heart numbed by betrayal. A wave of murmuring swept the gallery. The bailiffs swiftly recuffed Harrington, Laura, and Griffin, readying to remove them. The judge hammered her gavel. "Court is adjourned." The hush exploded into a clamor of reporters shouting questions. Ms. Delgado exhaled, leaning to James. "They each got near the maximum recommended. This is a big win, legally." James nodded, face taut. "Thank you, Ms. Delgado, for fighting relentlessly." She gave him a small smile. "Credit goes to your evidence, your determination." James rose, scanning the defendants. Harrington glowered, cursing under his breath about appeals. Laura convulsed in sobs, whispering half apologies, her belly trembling. Griffin stared at James with silent desperation, tears glistening, as officers guided him away. James felt no desire to offer comfort. He stood by, letting them vanish from his life, each heading to a separate prison term. Stepping out onto the courthouse steps, James faced the press throng one last time. Cameras clicked, questions erupted. "Mr. Hadley, are you satisfied with the sentences? Will you ever forgive your father or wife?" He paused at a microphone, voice resonating with quiet strength. "I'm grateful the court recognized the severity of their crimes. As for forgiveness, that's a personal journey. Right now I'm just relieved justice is served. Thank you." He turned away, ignoring further queries. Nina rushed forward, hugging him gently. Alexis joined them, smiling. "You did it, James? They're gone." He exhaled, tears brimming. "Yeah, it's over or close to it." Nina pressed her hand into his. "Now you can heal." He gave a small nod, heart heavy but freed from the conspirator's shadow. In the days following sentencing, local headlines declared, "Wealthy mogul Harrington gets 18 years. Accountant wife and father of victim sentenced in doping conspiracy." Social media lit up with condemnation or morbid fascination. James tried not to read comments, focusing instead on resuming a stable routine. Harrington's real estate empire imploded. Auction notices appeared, selling off luxury properties to pay fines. Former associates distanced themselves. Meanwhile, the gold bars were seized, with partial proceeds returned to victim restitution or government seizure. Laura, locked behind bars while pregnant, faced a grim reality. The unborn baby's future was uncertain. Once born, Child Protective Services would handle custody. She wrote more letters to James, but Ms. Delgado said he could decline them. He did. Griffin's marina assets were liquidated to cover legal fees and fines, leaving him with nothing but his cell. Word had it he fell into deep depression, refusing visitors. James quietly moved on with life, teaching his classes with renewed vigor. Students treated him with subtle respect, some praising his courage. Faculty offered discreet compassion. One late afternoon, Nina showed up at James's place with groceries again, an unspoken ritual. They cooked together, laughter bubbling despite the emotional scars. After dinner, they strolled along the shoreline near his house, the waves lapping at the sand. The conversation meandered to the future, overshadowed by heartbreak, but tinged with hope. Nina finally paused, turning to James. "Now that the sentencing is done, do you feel ready to explore something between us?" Her cheeks flushed, but her gaze was steady. James's heart fluttered. He thought of how unwavering she'd been a friend, a confidant, never pushing too hard, always respectful. "Yes," he said softly, taking her hand. "I won't pretend I'm fully healed, but I can't deny I want more with you. If you'll have me." A warm smile blossomed on Nina's face. "I'd be honored." She leaned in, pressing a tender kiss to his cheek. The quiet, salt air wrapped them in a gentle hush. For the first time in months, James felt something akin to peace. They walked back to the house, hand in hand, the hush of the ocean reminding him that even after the darkest storms, calm waters could return. As night fell, James stood at his front door, Nina by his side. Together they stepped inside, heartbeats calmer than they'd been in ages. The criminals rotted in prison, the gold fiasco dismantled, the doping plan thwarted. "I survived," he thought, surprising himself with a small, hopeful smile. Next came the slow healing of a battered soul. Chapter 12. Weeks after the sentencing, James found a new rhythm. Mornings spent at Seacrest Community College, teaching bright students about historical revolutions, afternoons occasionally with Nina, quiet evenings grading papers. The once-raging scandal cooled, replaced by curiosity about how James was coping. He maintained a humble, calm demeanor, pushing forward. He decided to sell the home he'd once shared with Laura. The memories weighed too heavily from marital bliss to heartbreak. A local realtor, hearing James's story, offered a fair deal. By the end of the month, the sale closed. He rented a smaller cottage near the shore, a fresh start for a fresh chapter. Nina helped him pack boxes, discarding Laura's old clothes, the wedding photos. James paused over a photo of him and Griffin hugging from years back. His throat constricted. That man's gone forever. Nina placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. He nodded and threw the photo in the trash. One breezy Sunday, Nina and James took a scenic drive along the rugged Maine coast, waves crashing against rocky cliffs. They stopped at a quaint cafe, perched above the sea, sipping coffee while gulls soared overhead. For a moment, James's turmoil felt distant, replaced by the warmth of Nina's presence. She nudged his foot under the table, playful. "So, how are you feeling about us?" Her smile held caution, but also hope. James set his mug down, eyes meeting hers. "I'm grateful, excited, a bit scared, but mostly, I feel safe with you. It's new territory after so much betrayal, but I want to see where it leads." She reached across, lacing her fingers through his. "Me too. No pressure, just honesty, one day at a time." They shared a gentle kiss over the table, ignoring the few patrons who might glance their way. The tang of salt air and the hush of waves made it feel like a small sanctuary from the storm that had been his life. Town residents occasionally recognized James, offering supportive comments. A middle-aged woman at the grocery store said, "You're the teacher from the scandal, right? Glad you got justice." Another older man gave him a pat on the shoulder. "Heard about your father's betrayal, son. Real sorry. You hang in there." James nodded politely, Hart somewhat eased that the community viewed him sympathetically. The scorn fell on Harrington, Laura, and Griffin. Rumors indicated Harrington's older deals across multiple states might face re-examination. Possibly more charges awaited him, guaranteeing a longer jail term. James returned each day to a calm cottage, relishing the absence of tension. The phone rang rarely, now just supportive friends. No more intrusive media calls. One afternoon, Ms. Delgado phoned to report that Laura had delivered her child behind bars. She gave birth prematurely at 7 months, a baby boy with some health complications, but stable. The father, legally uncertain, was biologically likely Griffin. Child Protective Services is involved. The baby will likely go to foster care unless Griffin's relatives claim him, Delgado explained. Do you want any part in that process? James stared out the window, heart heavy. No. That baby's not mine. I have no interest in fatherhood under these circumstances. Delgado sighed. I understand. They'll keep you posted if anything changes. He ended the call, sorrow flickering. A child born from the twisted union of father and wife, he pitied the innocent infant, but it wasn't his responsibility. Weeks slid by, life steadily improving. Then, out of nowhere, James received a letter from Griffin via the prison mail system, forwarded by Ms. Delgado. He debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. The note was short. Son, they gave me limited phone privileges, but I assume you won't take my calls. I'm writing to apologize again and to ask if you'd consider letting me see you in person. I don't want to die in prison with your hatred. I know I can't fix what I did, but I want some measure of peace. I beg you to consider visiting your father, if you still can call me that. James read it 3 times, anger swirling. Did Griffin truly seek redemption, or was it another ploy for leniency? He stuffed the letter into a drawer, unsettled. Part of him wanted to see the man who fathered that baby, to deliver scathing words face to face. Another part wanted to forget Griffin forever. Unable to decide, James visited the old marina one last time. The property was under new ownership, Griffin's name stripped from the signage. As he strolled the docks, memories flooded in. Child James learning to tie knots, father teaching him to fish, proud smiles. All a lie? He sighed, letting the ocean breeze carry the weight of those recollections away. The new marina owner, a friendly, middle-aged woman, recognized James from the news. She offered condolences. He politely thanked her, walked to the end of the pier, gazing at the waters. In the reflection, he saw a different man, sadder, stronger, alive. Goodbye, Dad, he whispered to the waves. Days later, after talking to Nina and Alexis, James decided to face Griffin in prison. Not out of pity, but to seal his own closure. If Griffin had illusions of fatherly redemption, James wanted to quell them on his terms. He arranged a visitation date, the warden confirming an afternoon slot. Nina offered to accompany him, but James insisted on going alone. I need to handle this personally, he said. She understood, giving him a supportive kiss on the cheek. When the day arrived, James drove to the state prison, heart pounding with each mile. The facility loomed behind high fences, razor wire gleaming. An officer led him through corridors of concrete and steel to a visitation room. Harsh fluorescent lights flickered overhead, an institutional chill in the air. They seated James at a table, separated by plexiglass from the inmates. He waited in silence, mind racing with old memories and fresh anger. Then the door opened, and a guard escorted Griffin in. The older man wore a standard prison jumpsuit, hair disheveled, face haggard with regret. He approached the glass partition, picking up the phone receiver on his side, trembling. James lifted his receiver. Their eyes met through the plexiglass, father to son, both hearts heavy with betrayal. James, Griffin's voice cracked. "Thank you for coming." He stared coldly. "I came for closure, not forgiveness." Griffin nodded weakly, tears brimming. "I understand. I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't fix it. I can't defend sleeping with Laura. She seduced me. But I was weak. And the doping plan, I regret letting Harrington rope me in. I should have refused." James's lip curled. "You should have. Now you're in prison, and the baby you fathered is basically orphaned." "Good job." Griffin winced, tears rolling. "I never wanted a child from that. The baby's in foster care, from what I hear. If I ever get out, maybe I'll try to raise him, though that might be unfair, given my age." James's chest tightened with sorrow for the innocent child. "Well, that's your mess to deal with. I want no part. You destroyed our family bond the moment you touched Laura." Griffin placed a trembling palm on the plexiglass. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I do love you, son. Can you ever find it in your heart to let go of the hate?" James's throat constricted. He thought of all the fond memories overshadowed by this horror. Slowly, he shook his head. "I don't know if I can, but I can move on without you. That's enough." Tears welled in Griffin's eyes. "If that's your path, I accept it. I just wanted you to know my regrets are real." A wave of conflicting emotion battered James, but he held firm. "I believe you regret it? Sure. But we can't rewind time. Goodbye, Dad." He hung up the phone, standing abruptly, ignoring Griffin's choked pleas. A guard motioned him out. The last image James saw was Griffin, slumped, tears staining his cheeks, pressing a hand to the glass. Back home, James felt an odd mix of relief and sorrow. He'd faced Griffin, heard the apology. It changed nothing, but at least the father's illusions of reconciliation were dashed. James rummaged in a box of old childhood photos, selecting the ones featuring Griffin. He walked to a beach bonfire pit near his new cottage. One by one, he tossed them into the flames, tears mingling with salt air. As each photo curled in the fire, he whispered farewells to that fatherly figure who never truly existed. "This is my closure." Dusk settled, painting the sky with orange and crimson. James watched the last photo disintegrate. A hush enveloped him, a quiet acceptance. Laura's in prison, father's in prison, Harrington's in prison, the baby is out of my life. Though heartbreak lingered, the toxic presence was gone. He turned from the dying embers, the ocean breeze offering a cleansing rush. Tomorrow, he'd continue forging a new path, possibly with Nina by his side. The camera panned out on James's silhouette against the blazing fire, symbolizing the final purge of old ghosts. Chapter 13. 12 months slipped by since that final bonfire and confrontation with Griffin. James, now 34, found his life in calmer waters. He'd settled into the snug oceanfront cottage, enjoying the tranquil hush of waves, reorganizing his personal space free of Laura's old clutter. The scandal mostly faded from public chatter, replaced by new local dramas. At Seacrest Community College, he'd been promoted to lead a special American history research project. Students admired him for resilience, calling him Professor Hadley, the Unstoppable. He accepted the role with quiet pride. Nina remained a cornerstone, their relationship blossoming gradually from supportive friendship to gentle romance. They still took things slow, respecting James's lingering wariness. But warmth and affection wove through their days, shared dinners, weekend hikes, stargazing sessions by the shore. She never pushed for more than he was ready to give, and that acceptance felt like the purest form of love James had ever known. From occasional legal updates, James heard that Laura, imprisoned, gave birth months ago. The baby boy, fathered by Griffin, was placed in a foster care system. Laura tried seeking early release to bond with the child, but the judge refused. She'd have to serve a minimum portion of her 12-year sentence. Word was, she sank into despair, writing letters, none of which James read. Harrington, rotting in federal prison with no illusions of appeal success, faced additional suits from other states for his hush money exploitations. He apparently lost everything, properties auctioned, bank accounts frozen. That once imposing mogul was now a disgraced felon. James felt no sympathy. They reaped what they sowed. Within the prison walls, Griffin's health reportedly deteriorated. He was in his 60s, weighed down by guilt and harsh conditions. Rumors suggested he might be battling depression or minor heart issues. Occasionally, the warden emailed Ms. Delgado updates about his failing morale. James sometimes felt a faint pang of pity. This was still the man who'd taught him to tie fishing knots. But the betrayal overshadowed it. He refused to visit again or pay for special medical care. He made his choice. Let him bear the consequences. In the peaceful months post-scandal, James delved deeper into personal hobbies, finding solace in painting. Inspired by the Maine coastline, he painted seascapes at dawn, capturing the interplay of golden light on waves. Nina teased him gently that he had a hidden artistic streak. He'd laugh, feeling normalcy creeping back into his life. He also found renewed dedication to teaching, infusing his lectures with empathy about humanity's capacity for betrayal or resilience. Students noticed he spoke with extra conviction about moral lessons from history's darkest chapters. Some guessed it stemmed from personal experience, but no one pressed him. Every so often he glimpsed a baby stroller or a father playing with a toddler, and a faint ache brushed his heart. That could have been me under different circumstances. But the baby was never truly his, and the betrayal was too deep. One breezy afternoon, while they strolled a secluded beach, Nina carried a small picnic basket. They found a spot on smooth sand, setting out sandwiches and fruit. The gulls cawed overhead, waves rolling gently. The conversation started casual campus gossip, local festivals, until Nina paused, searching his face. She bit her lip, then breathed. James, I've been thinking about the future and us. You know I'm patient, but I also wonder if we might move in together or take a step further. Only if you want, of course. James's chest tightened. He gazed at her, recalling how she'd stood by him through every heartbreak. Did he trust himself to build a life again, to share a home with another woman? Yet the warmth in her eyes, the unwavering support, told him yes. He reached for her hand. I do want that, he murmured. You've been my rock, Nina. I'm ready to share my life with someone good. Let's find a place together, or you can move into my cottage. Either way, I want you with me. A bright smile lit her face. She leaned forward, pressing a gentle kiss to his lips. The ocean's hush enveloped them, as if nature itself blessed this quiet new beginning. A week later, James received a surprising email from a well-regarded university in Boston. They'd heard of his skill as a history instructor, plus the resilience that made headlines. They offered a visiting professorship for a semester, with potential for a permanent position. The pay was better, the program well-funded. He pondered it. Part of him loved the small-town Maine life. Another part recognized this might be a chance to break free of scandal's lingering echoes. Nina, when asked, simply said, I'll support whatever you choose. I can work remotely, or find a new position if we move. Or, we can stay, it's your call, James. He weighed the choice. The simple coastal life near old memories, or a fresh horizon in a bustling city. He decided to sit on it, letting the thought percolate. One evening, Ms. Delgado called again, stating that Laura had made a final request from prison. a special hearing to reduce her sentence on medical grounds, claiming pregnancy complications. The baby was already born in foster care, but apparently postpartum depression was fueling her plea. The judge scheduled a hearing, requiring James's presence if he wished to oppose it. James felt a flash of anger. She's still trying to avoid accountability. He told Ms. Delgado he'd attend, determined to argue against early release. She used doping threats, betrayed me in every way. Her pregnancy doesn't undo that, he said. Ms. Delgado agreed, preparing counter-arguments. At the small hearing, a different judge presided. Laura, pale and hollow-eyed, stood in shackles. Her lawyer insisted postpartum depression and the baby's need for maternal bonding warranted a reduced term. Ms. Delgado retorted that the baby wasn't James's, and the father was in prison too, so no stable family existed. The infant was safely with a foster family, well cared for. Releasing Laura only served her interests, not the child's. When the judge invited James to speak, he rose calmly, voice unwavering. My ex-wife chose money and betrayal. She threatened to drug me. She's serving 12 years for serious crimes. Pregnancy or postpartum issues don't erase her actions. She's no victim. Laura locked tearful eyes on him. James, I've changed. The child needs me. I can't fix what I did, but He cut her off, not meeting her gaze. I'm not your husband anymore, and that baby isn't mine. You destroyed any chance of me caring. Face your sentence. The judge listened to both sides, then ruled swiftly. Motion denied. The existing sentence stands. Laura burst into sobs, led away by guards. James watched with hollow finality, a flicker of pity overshadowed by the need for justice. With that matter settled, James finally embraced an era of calm. Summer arrived in Maine, the coastline busy with tourists seeking lobster rolls and ocean breezes. James taught a shortened summer course, then took a brief vacation with Nina, just a drive to a secluded lakeside cabin, not Griffin's, but a pleasant rental. They canoed across pristine waters, chatted by a campfire under starlight. One late night, Nina confessed she'd never felt so content. James realized he too felt a sense of renewal, freed from the conspirator's grasp, able to love again. He told her about the Boston job offer. She squeezed his hand, saying, If you want to go, I'll come with. If you want to stay, I'll stay. My love for you isn't tied to a zip code. He kissed her softly, murmuring that he'd let her know soon. Back at the cozy cottage, James scrolled through the Boston University's offer. I can chase a bigger career, or remain where I'm comfortable. He remembered how small-town gossip had once suffocated him, but maybe it no longer mattered. Nina joined him, resting her chin on his shoulder. He smiled at her reflection in the laptop screen, mind drifting. I survived betrayal beyond measure. With Nina, I can flourish anywhere. The question, where would they build the next chapter of their lives? The final chapter beckoned, a promise of love, healing, and renewed purpose on his own terms. Chapter 14. A full year passed since the final hearing. The dust truly settled. James ultimately decided to stay in Maine, turning down the Boston Post. He realized Seacrest Community College was where he made a difference, and he loved the coastal serenity. Nina supported him wholeheartedly. In that year, they grew closer, forging a stable, loving relationship free from secrets. He found joy in everyday life, quiet breakfasts with Nina, morning runs along the shoreline, evenings spent discussing new lecture ideas or reading together on the couch. The specter of betrayal receded, replaced by an undercurrent of gratitude. Where are they now? Laura, serving her 12-year sentence with no possibility of parole until at least year 8. She wrote the occasional letter, never answered by James. The baby, fathered by Griffin, remained in foster care. Rumors said she tried to maintain contact with the child through official channels, uncertain if she'd ever gain custody. Harrington. In a federal penitentiary facing multiple lawsuits from previous victims in other states, his health reportedly declined, pride shattered. He might spend the rest of his life behind bars, a once powerful tycoon undone by greed and scandal. Griffin. At 65, coping with prison life. His attempts at fatherly reconciliation with James all failed. He occasionally wrote James updates about the child's progress in foster care, hoping James might pass them along. James never responded. James found new vigor in teaching. He authored a research paper on the parallels between historic betrayals, like Benedict Arnold, and modern domestic betrayals, weaving subtle references to his own experiences into academic arguments. The paper gained traction in certain circles, earning him an invitation to speak at a national history conference. While preparing for that conference, he quietly recognized the parallels. How betrayal from within your own ranks, be it in war or marriage, can devastate a person's trust. Yet sometimes, it can forge new strength. Nina, now considered more than just a girlfriend, shared James's cottage. She moved her belongings in piece by piece. A newly minted sense of home blossomed fresh decor, a shared library of books, photos of them hiking or traveling. The house felt bright, unhaunted by old ghosts. One breezy afternoon, as they lounged on the deck watching gulls swoop over the waves, Nina turned to James with a thoughtful smile. "Did you ever think you'd be this content again?" He slipped an arm around her. "Never. But thanks to you and a lot of healing, I'm actually happy." She rested her head on his shoulder. "That's all I wanted to hear." Alexis swung by for a weekend getaway, having remained a dear friend. Over grilled seafood on the deck, they reminisced about the intense investigation. James asked if she ever regretted diving into his scandal. She snorted a laugh. "It's not every day you bring down a millionaire mogul, a cheating wife, and a backstabbing father all at once. Professionally, it was thrilling. Morally, I'm just glad you're free." James gave a wry grin, toasting her with a soda. "Here's to your skillful detective work. Couldn't have done it without you." She winked. "You did the heavy lifting emotionally. I just handled the forensics." They shared laughter, a far cry from the tension of that yacht bust. During a routine grocery run, James encountered an unexpected figure, the new foster parents caring for Laura's baby. They recognized him from media stories, quietly introduced themselves in the produce aisle. The man, a middle-aged father named Tom, said, "We have the child fathered by your father. We want you to know he's healthy and growing well." James's stomach flipped. The baby, his half-brother, was about a year old now, presumably oblivious to the twisted family tree. James forced a polite smile. "I'm glad he's in good hands." "Thank you." Tom offered a business card. "If you ever want to be part of his life in some capacity, we're open to safe contact. He'll ask questions someday about his biological roots." James stared at the card, heart heavy. The child was innocent in all this. Could I be a supportive half-sibling? The thought unsettled him. For now, he pocketed the card, quietly saying, "I'll think about it." He walked away, feeling the weight of a moral dilemma should he sever ties or at least let the child know, someday, that not all of his father's family scorned him. Back home, James recounted the encounter to Nina. She took his hand, leading him to the couch. "That baby is innocent, James. But it's also okay if you can't handle involvement yet. You need to do what's healthy for you." He slumped, pressing a hand over his face. "I never wanted to punish a kid, but the father is my father, who hurt me profoundly. It's complicated." She nodded. Maybe in a few years, if you're ready, you can reach out. The child might deserve some knowledge of his half-sibling, but it's your call." He exhaled. "I'll keep the card. Let time guide me." Weeks later, James received an official sealed letter from Harrington's attorney. With caution, he opened it, prepared for some manipulative nonsense. Instead, it read, "Mr. Hadley, I write from prison with no illusions of changing my fate. I realize I destroyed many lives. I singled you out for exploitation, seeing your wife's greed as an easy route. I regret the doping plan more than anything that was beyond immoral. I still maintain the deal was between consenting adults. But I see now the monstrousness of sedating a man to keep him from interfering. I know you may never forgive me, but I offer this apology to unburden my own conscience. Alexander Harrington." James read it, scoffing. The letter dripped with half-hearted contrition, more about Harrington's guilt than any empathy for James. He tossed it aside, uninterested in Harrington's self-serving remorse. As time marched on, James found small markers of healing. He no longer flinched at hearing Laura or Griffin in random contexts. The sight of a father teaching a child to fish no longer triggered heartbreak. He felt genuine excitement planning a future with Nina. One day, she suggested they plan a short trip maybe to Aspen, ironically, to reclaim that location from the memory of Laura's betrayal. James agreed with a wry grin. Let's make new memories in the place she used for deception. They booked a cozy lodge weekend, an act of rewriting his personal narrative. On the quiet Maine shore, the sun set in a blaze of pink and orange. James and Nina walked hand in hand, the waves lapping gently at their ankles. The future no longer felt overshadowed by betrayal. Instead, the hush of possibilities beckoned. As they paused, turning to face each other, James gave a contented sigh. "We've come so far," he murmured, pressing his forehead to hers. She smiled softly. "We sure have." Chapter 15. 6 months after the sentencing, James's life was calm, yet quietly fulfilling. He'd fully settled into the ocean-front cottage with Nina. Their routine was sweet: morning coffee watching the sunrise, parting ways for campus classes, reuniting in the evening for homemade dinners or beach strolls. The specter of scandal had mostly vanished from local chatter, replaced by fresh local dramas. James still occasionally woke from nightmares, flashes of Laura's sobs or Griffin's betrayal, but the frequency waned. Nina's presence offered a grounding warmth, reminding him he was no longer alone in the darkness. He engaged in therapy sessions recommended by Ms. Delgado. Talking it out with a professional let him release lingering guilt, anger, heartbreak. Over time, the therapist helped him see that the betrayal didn't define him. His response, seeking justice, proved his inner strength. Nina's birthday approached, and James planned a surprise. He invited a handful of close colleagues, plus Alexis and Ms. Delgado, for a small gathering at the cottage. They barbecued fresh seafood, laughing under string lights. The evening sparkled with genuine warmth. During a lull in conversation, Ms. Delgado raised a glass to James, praising his courage. "You turned the worst betrayal into a testament of resilience. Cheers to your future." Everyone clinked glasses, smiles bright. Nina glowed with contentment. She squeezed James's hand, whispering, "This is the happiest I've ever been." He pressed a gentle kiss to her cheek, silent gratitude filling his chest. Midway through the summer, Ms. Delgado informed James that Laura tried filing an appeal, citing new motherhood concerns. The appellate court swiftly rejected it, upholding her 12-year sentence. Ms. Delgado grinned wryly. "She's out of legal maneuvers." James merely nodded. No flicker of pity stirred. She'd chosen her path. Similarly, Harrington's counsel attempted a Hail Mary appeal, claiming judicial bias, also dismissed. Harrington's once powerful empire lay in ruins, replaced by indefinite imprisonment. Griffin's minimal attempts at appealing on health grounds also failed. Case closed. One sunny afternoon, James walked the downtown pier grabbing ice cream. He spotted the foster parents who cared for Laura's child, Tom, and his wife, Marisol, pushing a stroller. James tensed, but they noticed him offering friendly waves. He greeted them hesitantly. They smiled, pointing at the baby boy in the stroller, brown-eyed, about a year and a half old now. The child gazed around with wide curiosity. "Look who's grown," Marisol said softly. "He's healthy, bright. We named him Logan." James forced a small smile. "Logan? That's nice." Tom nodded. "We want him to know his biological roots when he's older about Laura Griffin. But you're also biologically related in a twisted way. We're open if you'd like occasional updates. No pressure." James stared at the child, feeling a distant pang. This boy was his half-brother, ironically. Did he have any moral duty to be present in the child's life? The baby cooed, oblivious to the scandal behind his existence. After a moment, James nodded. "I appreciate that. Maybe in the future I might want to stay in touch. For now, I'm not ready." Marisol placed a gentle hand on his arm. "We understand. We just wanted you to know Logan's well-loved." He thanked them, stepping away with a swirl of complicated emotions. A child born from betrayal, now given a chance at a better life. At least that part wasn't a tragedy for the child. That evening, James confided in Nina about Logan. She listened intently, then embraced him. "You're allowed to feel torn. He's an innocent baby, but the circumstances are painful. If you want to connect someday, I'll support you." He exhaled, touched by her unwavering acceptance. "Thank you. Maybe in a few years I can handle it. Right now, I just want to live my life free of that heartbreak." She nodded. "Whatever you decide, I'm here." Days flowed into weeks, each small routine reinforcing his sense of normalcy. The betrayal no longer haunted his every thought. It became a distant storm he'd survived. The new academic year loomed. James, rechecking his email, found the Boston University visiting professor offer still open if he changed his mind. They even sweetened the deal, a year-long fellowship with housing provided plus a path to tenure. He told Nina about it, half expecting her to say they should move. But she smiled. "If you want that bigger stage, I'll follow. Or if you want to keep your main life, I'm content. The choice is yours." James mulled it over, recalling how settled he felt in Maine, how the ocean's hush comforted him. But the challenge of a bigger institution, new opportunities, it tugged at his ambition. "I can't let betrayal chain me to one place," he thought. "But do I want to leave the home I love?" He considered the possibility of a compromise, taking the fellowship for a year, seeing if city life suited them, then deciding to stay or return. Nina was open to that. One evening, they sat on the porch swing, the moon high above the sea. Nina nudged him playfully. "You taught me to embrace new horizons. Don't let fear hold you back. If Boston calls your name, we can do it. If we hate it, we come home." James gazed into her shining eyes. "You'd uproot for me just like that?" She laced her fingers with his. "Your heart is my home now. Location is secondary." A surge of warmth filled him, overshadowing old wounds. Maybe the future is ours to shape anywhere. Before making a final decision on Boston, James felt the need to close out one last piece, the possibility of a paternity test for Logan. The child was almost 2, but official paternity, beyond a shadow of doubt, might bring clarity. Even if Griffin confessed, maybe a test would confirm it legally, letting James rest without the what-if. He reached out to Tom and Marisol, explaining he'd pay for a discreet test if they were comfortable. They agreed, understanding his desire for closure. Within a week, results confirmed. Griffin was the father with 99. 9% certainty, 0 chance James had fathered him. The final sliver of doubt vanished. The child was truly Griffin's, severing any paternal link to James. He felt a wave of relief, though a faint sadness lingered for the baby's complicated origins. Still, knowledge gave him closure. A month later, having weighed every angle, James and Nina decided to accept the Boston visiting professorship. "We'll treat it like an adventure," Nina teased. "1 year, see how we like the city. If we miss Maine, we'll come back." He exhaled, a blend of excitement and nerves. "Deal. Let's do it." They planned to sublet the Ocean Cottage for the year, pack essentials, and relocate in the fall. The thought of stepping away from the scene of so much heartbreak felt liberating. A new environment might further his healing, let him focus on a promising academic path. Before leaving, he visited the beach bonfire pit one last time, the site where he'd burned old photos. Nina joined him, arms around his waist. He whispered, "I'm ready to let Maine go for a bit. Not forever, but to explore beyond these shores." She nodded, smiling against his shoulder. On a crisp autumn morning, James and Nina loaded up a moving truck. A few faculty friends and neighbors dropped by to say farewell. They promised to keep in touch, teased James about returning as a famous professor. He laughed shyly, hugging them. With the last box packed, he locked the cottage door, stepping back to see the place that had been both sanctuary and painful memory. Nina slid an arm around him, eyes bright. "Ready, Professor?" He took one final breath of salty Maine air. "Yes, I'm ready." They climbed into the truck, the engine rumbling. As they pulled away, James felt a swell of emotion, gratitude, heartbreak, hope. Laura, Griffin Harrington all imprisoned, the child in foster care, the gold fiasco ended, the doping plan thwarted. He'd emerged with a stronger sense of self, a new love by his side. They drove off, leaving the coastal horizon behind. Up ahead lay the highway to Boston, a new adventure. Nina nestled against his shoulder, softly saying, "We're free." He nodded, lips curving in a gentle smile. "Yes, we are." The camera panned out on the moving truck, cruising along the scenic road, ocean waves glittering in the distance. The trials of betrayal had forged him into a man who overcame heartbreak and fought for justice. Now, with Nina's hand in his, he ventured into the next chapter of life, scarred but unbroken, forging a future defined not by betrayal, but by resilience and love. Epilogue, short reflection. Time passes. Occasionally, James wonders about Laura or Griffin, locked away. He hears vague updates. Harrington lost all appeals, rots in a maximum security prison. Laura coasts through her sentence, sometimes petitioning the court to see her child, often denied. Griffin's health wavers, overshadowed by guilt. The child, Logan, thrives with caring foster parents. Maybe one day, James might offer moral guidance from afar, but not yet. In Boston, James discovers a renewed passion for academia, delivering guest lectures that captivate large audiences. Nina finds remote editorial work, forging friendships in the city. On weekends, they explore museums, savor different cuisines, occasionally reminiscing about Maine's quiet charm. They talk about returning to the coast, eventually their coast, untainted by betrayal, because it's James's anchor no matter where he roams. And so, the final image. James finishing a riveting lecture on historical betrayals, the applause echoing in the lecture hall. He glances at Nina in the front row, smiling with pride. He knows he overcame the darkest treachery, refused to be a victim, and found a way to love and trust again. The heartbreak shaped him, but never destroyed him. He won.